Well, my dear friends, I have good news and I have not so good news. The not so good news is, as our dear friend Grail already said, it's already Monday again. Time marches on. It's just the 3-day cycle of Majora's Mask trapped in Termina ad infinitum. But the good news is here we are and it's time again for Tales of Praxis. So hopefully we can at least kick off your Monday evening in the right way and situate ourselves in a nice evening going on to a nice week of studying video game storytelling. I'm your host, Aaron Suduko, the founder of With a Terrible Fate, or as our stalwart regular Grail has taken to calling me, Aaron Terrible Fate. It's not a great name, but I've been called worse. WithTheTerribleFate.com, for those of you who may not know, is your online volunteer publication home for all of the most rigorous analytical studies and celebrations of storytelling in the best storytelling medium there is, video games. Tales of Praxis is a series of analytical articles and streamed live book clubs, real-life JRPG parties, whatever you like to call it, that I've been running here on Twitch and on the site for the last half a year or so, specifically focused on Bandai Namco's Tales JRPGs, celebrating their storytelling, trying to better understand the language of their storytelling and their impact on video games more broadly, not just as one-off games, but rather as a cohesive series. So we're looking at them all. It's quite an undertaking. There are quite a few games, if you didn't know that, but it's one of those things that's already been tremendously rewarding because the further you get into it and the more of these games you play in quick succession with each other, the more you can come to appreciate what they're doing as a series and an expressive gesture rather than just as those individual stories. So if you are just catching up, we've put another main story under our belt at this point. We started off the stream with Tales of Symphonia, then we did Dawn of the New World, then we did Tales of Zestiria, then we did Zestiria's DLC, Alicia's Story, which followed up on the conclusion of Zestiria, and now last Friday, we finally rolled credits on the main story of Tales of Berseria, the prequel to Zestiria. Wow, I know we talked through it and started thinking about it and reflecting on it before the weekend, but what a wonderful climax to a really great story. I really feel like Tales of Berseria has a special way of tying all its threads together in a way that is emotionally moving, motivates Tales of Zestiria in a very well-composed, natural way, and gives us a lot to think about and a lot of character studies, which I imagine, based on what these side quests are looking like, we'll be diving into more because we're not done with Berseria yet. We will be moving on to another game. Stay tuned for that. But for at least probably the next couple of streams, because there's quite a bit of side content that we kept putting off because we wanted to get into the main story. But now that's over. And so we can continue to digest the main story and think about how the main story's contours perhaps change or metamorphose as we dive into some of this really great optional content, much of which, as far as I could tell, focuses on particular characters, which will be very, very cool to see. Yeah, Grail. Well, you know, you're allowed to like stuff and still have this not be your favorite game. Two things can be true, right? So there you go. Burst 2, welcome. Nice to see you. Always happy to have a first-time chatter, so welcome to the stream. Grail, my weekend was good. Actually, my weekend is part of the reason that I was late, because basically, since the end of the stream on Friday through to moments before the stream, I've been working on my latest analytical article for the Tales of Praxis series, which regulars will know I've been giving you regular updates on, just to give you a sense of scope, because I don't like coming on the stream every day or a few days and saying, I'm working on this, it's coming, although of course things take time. But for point of reference, I took stock, and right now, unless I radically end up winnowing down the draft of this comparative study that I'm doing on Tales of Destiny and Tales of Vesperia, it's easily going to end up being the second longest study that I've published on With a Terrible Fate, standalone study, after the book that I wrote on Xenoblade Chronicles 3 and Wittgenstein. So it'll be fun to dissect why that's the case. Hopefully it'll be interesting and rewarding. But I'm definitely getting a very different perspective on Vesperia and Destiny. I wanted to mark some progress before digging into the stream, so I just finished wrapping up my studies of Act 2 of both games, which I think I might have mentioned this last time, but the more time I've been spending living in those games, the more I do feel they have something interesting to say relative to each other, and the more I do feel that maybe this is the case with all Tales games. I don't think it is, but I think with these two games, they're both really weighted in the middle, because in the first act, primarily, I think it's a lot of the protagonists basically being jolted out of their inertia in life, starting to think about their personal desires. Then in the second act, it's really that complicated, careful dance of getting those characters to figure out how to actually coordinate their desires into group action, and then really coming to understand what the limitations of those actions are, such that then they're able to further grow and develop and overcome whatever the ultimate limitations to individual actions are in the third act. So that's all to say, I'm hoping that the inertia of the piece, I guess you could say, is behind me at this point, and a lot of looking at Act 3 and then beyond that, which will be kind of the meta level of player involvement and how that mirrors the themes, will be a kind of falling action. But stay tuned. Having just finished wrapping Act 2 of Tales of Vesperia, I think I can safely say, no matter what you like about Act 2, it is probably in there. I don't even want to highlight or foreshadow too much of it, except to say, I think when I was playing the game, and even when I was replaying it, I didn't really appreciate how much, with spoilers for Vesperia, the death of Don Whitehorse is really a centerpiece in the story, even beyond its impact on Carol and his thinking about what he wants to do following the death of his role model. So that ended up being a really nice moment in the story to ground some of my thinking about how these characters come to articulate their wills, not only individually, but in fact in a communal setting. But lots more to come on that. It'll be fun to see how it unfolds. It is the power of two games. I was also thinking about this, Grail, and like I said, it'll be fun to do a postmortem on this. But I think I kind of shot myself on the foot by making the first truly comparative analysis that I did for Tales of Praxis, one that also involved what I think it's safe to say is, by a significant margin, the longest standalone story in the Tales series. I mean, you'd be hard pressed to find something that's more involved and has more just disparate threads to its storytelling and character studies than the definitive edition of Tales of Vesperia, which is great. And I think that's actually one of the fun contrasts between its mode of storytelling and then the much more, you might say, rudimentary or just 90s style storytelling of Tales of Destiny. So it's fun. You can really treat it as really all of the work that you would expect from the Tales of Praxis series from the last few months. It's not that it's taking a while and it'll be the equivalent to something like what I did on Regal. I think it will bear out the amount of extra time that I put into it. And I hope you enjoy it. So I'll keep everyone on the stream posted, but I don't think it's realistic to say it'll be coming out this week. I think by next week might be realistic though. So excited to see how that unfolds. I will also say, the poll for what we will be playing after Tales of Berseria is still ongoing. You can still contribute. We have gotten some more contributions since last time, so I'll continue to pepper the chat with it. It'll be on social media and in the VOD. If you're watching on YouTube, check the description. But there are several games in the mix. I checked this morning and there's a new contender. So if you're really passionate about spending the amount of time and focus that we spent on Tales of Berseria on another one of your favorite Tales games or one of your least favorite Tales games, make sure to vote. Talk your friends into being part of the real life JRPG party and get them to vote. It could impact what it is that we do next. Grail. So I don't know whether I want to spoil the votes. I guess I will because I think it's interesting. So we've gotten 5 votes so far. I was trying to pull them up. I don't know if I can find the tab. Yeah, so they're not all different. They're mostly different. And I'll just say, at the risk of providing undue influence, but just because it's interesting, we have one for Tales of Graces. We have one for the duology of Tales of Xillia and Tales of Xillia 2, because I've said, if we're going to sit down and play Xillia, then we're going to do the sequel right after that. We have one for Tales of Arise, which of course would be timely given that the DLC Beyond the Dawn is coming out in November. And we have two for one which I've already played for Tales of Praxis and published on, but I've not done on stream. And if you know me, you'll be shocked to hear that two people have voted for Tales of the Abyss. So all of those could, of course, be a lot of fun. They'd be very different vibes, very different modes of exploration and engagement based on, how the audience feels about it, whether it's something Aaron has played before or not, whether it's something Aaron's published on. So many different directions we can go in, like we've talked about before. We really can't go wrong, but we'll wind through the side quests, see where we end up, and make a decision in one way or another. I know, Grail. Well, I think, Grail, you had a lot of fun while we were working through Alicia's story together, because even though that was shorter, obviously, and more self-contained, that was the first time I was playing something on stream that I'd never played before. So it's definitely a different vibe. It's all a matter of, what kind of vibe we're going for. Yeah, but shocker, right, Grail? Who would have guessed that Abyss was winning? Yeah, and Chrissy, to your point, and welcome to the chat. I mean, there's any number of vibes that we can get. One which has been fun on the stream so far is going into games that we didn't think a lot of the first time and giving them a fair shake. One is going into old favorites. One is trying something new. No, Grail, I am doing my best to abstain from voting, so I'll probably end up making an executive decision in one way or another at the end of the day. But I have not voted. That's all just contributions from viewers like you. So take that as you will. Yeah, I think that's all I've got for this fine Monday night. We can jump into this. The blazer's off now because we're not celebrating the epic conclusion of the story anymore. We're going into the side quests. But I think the next pin set that will be rolled out is one for Vesperia, because it is definitely the anchor to my analytical thinking right now. And I have some fun pins that I'll be rolling out for that. Dionysian Hugs, welcome. It's been a while. There you go. We've got another Abyss vote. Well, that would certainly be a fun journey. They all would be, though. So we'll see what happens. But I imagine as we get further into the week, I'll be ready to at least make an announcement about it. One fun grounding thought that I had, just since, as I said, it seems like some of the side quests we'll be doing will be particular character studies, was I remember earlier in the stream, we were thinking about this question that you can really pose in any JRPG, and especially in the Tales JRPGs. What is the relationship between the main character of the party, in this case Velvet, through which the narrative is focalized, and the other characters surrounding that main focus point? Are all of these other characters you see here representations of different aspects of Velvet? Are they all trying to teach her some kind of lesson that she wants to overcome? Some third option? And so I don't want to answer that, but especially as we're thinking about the way in which Berseria paves the way for Zestiria, now that we've all seen the conclusion of Berseria's main narrative together, I wanted to raise one thought that I was thinking about over the weekend and earlier today, which I thought was kind of interesting. We talked at the end of the story about how where Berseria ends up is a kind of mythopoeic creation story of Velvet and her friends setting up the preconditions that are necessary for the world for then Saray to enter it and be the kind of savior figure that is represented through his particular journey as the shepherd in Tales of Zestiria, right? And we stopped and gave a significant amount of thought to the nature of Velvet in that kind of irrational metaphysical loop with the Nominat, with them consuming each other as this kind of negative foundation for the cosmos for all of time, and how that makes possible Lathicet's metamorphosis into Mautellus, extending his blessing to the world. One thing that I thought would be fun just for us to keep in mind in terms of how the other characters might play into that, especially with the final scene that we got after those events in the embodiment of a Nominat as we go into these side quests, is I think it might be fun to consider how kind of throughout the party, all of these characters represent like a different aspect of the culture and the different players in the world who develop into these different societies and roles that then play a key aspect in the story of Zestiria and the journey that Saray is going on. Of course, we have Velvet and Lathicet creating these kind of theosophical foundations for the world. But then if you look at the kind of markedly diverse and comprehensive representation of the rest of the group, what do you have? You have Rokuro, someone someone who is so essentially this war demon that he remains a demon even after Tellus extends his blessing to the world, kind of showing the model of what it is to be someone who is authentically demonic, which is then picked up on and studied more closely in Tales of Zestiria in terms of the difference between malevolence and evil and allowing people to be evil if that's part of their authentic nature. We have Eleanor, who I think I would say pretty evidently forms the basis for, the following of the shepherd and that whole spirit of a religious belief in the world that is perhaps a little healthier and less hegemonic than the Abbey. We have Magulu, and we spoke about her in the last few motions of the third act in terms of the heritage of the Mavens and her overcoming Melchior in terms of their debate about what the right kind of history for the world is and who ought to be the kind of hero who paves the way for the future of the world. And then we have Eizen, the Malik, who, you might say, and we don't know that much about his history going forward until he becomes a dragon, but especially given the continuity between him and Edna in the Shepherd's Party, as the resident Malik of the party, who's not Tellus extending his blessing to the entire world, also kind of forming the source code for the Malakim who would become Seraphim in the future world. So interesting as we hopefully get some more character studies of all of them, to think of them not just as individual characters going through their arc in Berseria, but also wondering, okay, what kind of roles are they going to play such that the foundation of Zestiria is set up. So that's my thought, dear friends. Excited to get into it with you. Oh my goodness, we have the chat going. This is fabulous. I love it. I'll catch up on messages and then we'll dig in. Oh, there you go, Dionysian Hugs. That's great. So you're in the camp of not loving Abyss, but being interested and being convinced otherwise. As you know, I'm a big fan of that on Tales of Praxis. So sooner or later, I'm sure we'll have the opportunity to do that together, which will be fun. No, Grail. Everyone is entitled to their view. Some views may be wrong, but everyone is entitled to their view. Especially in JRPGs, you can have whatever stance on it you want. That's part of what makes them so diverse and fun. Yeah, Chrissy, especially given that you got Vesperia on sale. I know you mentioned that last time. I would say, like, for my part at least, part of why I was interested in doing this study on it was because, as I've mentioned on the stream in the past, I found it really hard to find my way into it. The several times I've played it in the past, because it always feels like something that resists understanding its narrative as a unified arc in the way you expect of a JRPG. But I think working through the study of why that's the case and how that contributes to what it's actually trying to say, for me, has been a lot of fun, and I think that could be fun to think through on the stream in more of a group conversation as well. Abyss but jank. That was not on my bingo card for descriptions of Vesperia, Grail, but I think I can work my way into the mindset of what you're saying. But maybe a bit more context would be good. Yeah, and it's funny, Chrissy. I mean, I've talked about this on the stream before too, but even with games like Berseria, where I don't remember everything, I do feel, and I imagine you all have had this experience too, where even if you've played or watched or read something in your past and you don't vividly consciously remember every aspect of it, it will oftentimes, more often than not maybe, even sink into your subconscious. So your body kind of knows what to expect from the story, even if you couldn't consciously tell someone what's going to happen next. So it is. And that's not to say one experience is better than the other, but I would say it's definitely a different experience, even playing something from one's past versus playing something for the first time. But both fun experiences, no doubt about that. And Eternia is another one, Grail, as you know, which I have not played before. I'm very excited about. I also find myself wondering, and I'll let the group mind kind of be the guide here, but especially after playing some of the more recent games, part of me feels like it might be fun to time travel back and do a more retro game just to see the contrast. Although I'm sure going back to something that was really not designed to be streamed after a much more recent game would be an interesting learning curve in and of itself. Which could be a fun challenge as much as anything. Sluggish, that's interesting. That almost makes me want to pick up Tales of the Abyss and Vesperia right side by side and see how they play. I would almost imagine, like, in my head, Vesperia, for whatever reason, which I couldn't even necessarily articulate, is a little more fluid and dynamic than Abyss. Maybe just because it was made a little bit later, although not very much. So I don't know. I'll have to think about it. Yeah, Grail, the ultimate fan of the Spear Girls. All right, dear friends. Well, last week it was so much fun working through and digging, hopefully pretty deep, you would agree with me, into the substance of the narrative's outcome. If you haven't been on one of the post-game streams in the past, now we're going to take a little bit of a different direction to our adventures together. More of an open-ended, you might say, open world in a certain sense adventure, which will hopefully be a nice change of pace before we then transition to another game, which is to say, basically, I have a big old repository of side quests up on my monitor here, courtesy of, shocker, GameFAQs and the great people who contribute great guides to that. And we're going to pop around and see what side quests we can see to uncover some more background content to the game as we go. I don't have any really hard and fast rules for how we're going to do this, and if there are any particular adventures or avenues that you all really want to go on, let me know. But I'm not one for spending a lot of time on mini games, as I think you probably all know by now, especially not on the stream. I might, push some boxes around a warehouse in a Tales of the Abyss playthrough that I'm not streaming, but especially on the stream, that's not really my bag. But I have it starting out with some of the character-specific side quests. Like I said, the first one, fittingly, is the one that we already started in terms of Rokuro and his past, which is tied to the Code Red quests. So I figured I would more or less work through the stuff in order, and we'll see what we can see. But as I said, feel free to call out if anything in particular is interesting, and we'll think through the game some more as we live it in a little bit of a different pace. Welcome back to Tales of Praxis. We're going to have a fun week together. I'm looking forward to it. Yeah, sounds good, Gray. Let me know if you think there's a particular place that's going to be the easiest to start. Of course I rely on walkthroughs, Chrissy. Here's the philosophical aspect of it. One needs to know the manner in which one wants to engage in the game and contour one's experience according to that. So there are certainly times, and I did this with Tales of Destiny because it was my first time going through it, where I don't use a walkthrough. I want to just experience it in a naturalistic way, and I'm only going to look at anything in the case that I get really, really stuck. But if I want to do cleanup and try to see everything, especially after having been through the main game, then there can certainly be a case in which it's very useful as a tool. It's not a matter of not using tools. It's a matter of being mindful as to how and why you're using them, which is a one-sentence thesis, by the way, of the 20,000 and counting word study that I'll be sharing with you in the next few weeks. So tuck that away. You'll get that one when you get it. I know. I think I know I said this back when we were doing Symphonia, but one of the many things that Symphonia introduced me to back in the day was GameFAQs and walkthroughs, because I got to the
now here's a fine haul.
The Toa's Valley Mine. It took me a minute to pull that proper noun out of my head, and poor little 8 or 9 year old Aaron couldn't figure out how to get past the spinning white block. It's not called a Bakura, but it's something like that, because you need to use a certain EX skill in order to move fast enough to get by it. And for the life of me, little kid Aaron couldn't figure out how to do that. So that was when I discovered, there are these great resources online that can help you figure out how to get past games when you get stuck. So, especially for games as complicated and not always obvious as the Tales games. And games, honestly, where just the community is a huge part of it. Right? There are certainly ways to use guides that to me to this day still feel like cheating, but there are also many ways in which to use it to enrich your experience and engage with other people who have so much love for these games as well.
Scout ship setting sail.
No, mindlessly using them is the thing that is contradictory to video game analysis in my view, Chrissy. It's all about mindfulness. Mindfulness and awareness of the content and nature of your actions, intentions, and agency. You can't bait me too much with this stuff, though, because if I keep talking in these abstractions, I'm just going to start lecturing on this article I've been working on all day, which might be fun for people. I don't know. I don't want to put the cart before the horse, but gotta just wait to read it. Jesus fucking Christ, it's a cats. Here we go, friends. Talking to a cats is the first thing we do on the stream. That's how you know we're in the side quest territory.
Oh no, this is bad. Catastrophic now. What am I going to do? Hey, Velvet, what's a cat's doing all the way out here?
And she's in quite a state at that.
Yeah, good idea, Grail. I'll check into town the code red progress. I think we've made a pretty good chunk of progress.
Mount Killorus is going crazy right now.
Mount Killorus. Easy but satisfying.
You think? Of course it is, meow. Take some personal responsibility. My, it must be quite the scene to make a cat so, furious.
Well,
Oh my god, so there are plenty of puns in Berseria too. They just save it for the side quests.
So then you're a villain? A dog lover, perhaps? Come on! She looks like she's in real trouble. Positively? Yeah. Alright, fine. Just go to Mount Killorus and I'll give you a cat's towel.
A cat's towel? I don't know what that is, but I want one.
Is Rokuro me with any kind of video game merchandise?
Suppose. I swear, everyone's such a sucker for cats.
Get to the crater and you'll see what's going on. Hurry! Yeah.
What makes this cat's towel so unique?
It just looks like a normal.
Oh, Zaveid's quest is definitely on the list, Grail. We can even start with that one if we want to, because I saw that on my list and I was really excited about it.
I cannot say why, but I have this sudden urge to leave everything else behind and wear only this towel.
Please don't.
Oh, if you insist. I guess even demons have some lines they shouldn't cross.
Yes, definitely.
That's enough, you two. Let's just start heading to Mount Killorus.
It seems like they really want us to start with the cat side quest, but no, I think especially given that we're situating ourselves in the side quest of Berseria and we're thinking about its relationship to Zestiria, and Zaveid was such a great presence that we were talking about throughout both of them, I feel as though it does make sense to start there. But I think you're right, Grail. It's good just to check our progress on the code reds before we get into it. So let's do that, and then we can go to Zaveid's quest. I like that. Yeah, Hugs, it's funny you mentioned that about games being designed to require guides in one way or another. I forget if I mentioned this when I was playing Tales of Destiny, but one thing that just was surprising and kind of funny to me was I got my copy of Tales of Destiny earlier this year. It's like a 96 or 97 game, right, for the PlayStation, so it's old school, and I opened it up, and it was complete in box, so it had all of the little pamphlets with it. And included, right with the instruction booklet and the discs and everything, was the number for like an 800 helpline where you could call like dedicated experts at Namco. And I think most of it was automated, but still, it was like built into the game. If you need help, if you're lost in Destiny's nonsensical dungeons based on like picking like button orders based on sound effects and knowing the signs of the zodiac and keeping track of complicated color codes, just give us a call and we'll help you out. So it tickled me because I never thought of that as a potential business strategy to combine complicated games with the entire funnel for guiding people to, you know, pay per call solutions for them, or pay per minute, whatever the term is. That was funny. No, I didn't. I thought about it. It would be interesting to see if it was still in service after all these years, or if it was just a discontinued number or something that someone else had taken over. I'll do that. I will. I'll take that on myself to call and report back on Wednesday. The wiki game, Grail? Like you just have to live on the game's wiki in order to get through it at all? I sometimes feel that way about Miyazaki's games. Not that I can't get through them without wikis, but just so much of the joy comes from piecing things together in the way that you can only really do with a good wiki.
Everyone knows that the scariest demons are found on Class 4 islands.
Yes. The Abbeys made sure to spread the word so that
I've heard that piece of lore, Chrissy. I love that.
Yeah, and from what I know, the worst of the lot is a place called Boss Island.
We should have a counter for the streams you're on, Chrissy, for how long it takes before we start talking about Silent Hill. I say it with love.
The baddest of demons come to that island to fight and kill each other.
So that's why you call it Boss Island. I'm just glad they're killing each other off and leaving us alone. I bet it makes for quite the show, too. Maybe give it a name, like Ultimate Demon Fighting Championship or something. Oh, that's a great idea. It sounds so festive. Bet it'd be fun. Oh, yes, you could even be the star of the whole show. There you'd be, standing alone against the nastiest critters around. I guarantee.
Yeah, that's interesting, Hugs. I feel like, again, for me, this is all a matter of, like, the intentionality with which you engage these games according to what you're trying to get out of it. Because it's funny, like, I love wikis. I think, especially for something like putting together a work of research about the Tales games, it's amazing to have something like the Asalia Tales wiki, because it is just like an online library and repository that makes it so much easier to even find citations in the game than would be able to do otherwise. And so I love that for games like FromSoft's as well. But I also like, it's like what we were saying about the guides, just in another form, right? I feel like if you're immediately diving into the wikis all the time, I don't want to say I feel like you're losing something, but I also feel like there's a special magic to navigating the worlds and, you know, piecing together what you can understand and appreciate about the lore just based on the particular like items and descriptions that you find, and kind of discovering the history in perhaps the way that was meant with some of the games, at least before, you know, wikis kind of exploded in the way that they have in modern times. So, again, not as if one is better than the other, just very different modes of engagement. No, Chrissy, you are more than fine. That is the running joke and also the joy of Tales of Praxis. It's all intertextual. Intertextual. That's a hard word to say on a Monday evening, I'll tell you. Oh boy. Even beyond the Tales games. Yeah, you got no disagreement from me on the quality of Magulu's character. She only continues to grow on me. Alright, so let's see how we're doing here. Yeah, I feel like that's a pretty handsome amount of progress. So what do we have left? One hanging out in the Emerald Labyrinth. One in the Ice Caps, the land of dancing white. One in Duval Forest. One in Morgana Woods. Oh, one on Titania. I'm sure we'll be going back there for the side quests at some point. One on Hexen Isle. Oh, yes, I remember. I clocked that one because we were able to see him on the map, and then that asshat Innominat interrupted us. Where were we? That was that one. Yeah. And one on the ice field. Okay. I feel like, because I have a list of them in the guide I'm using, I'm just going to do us all a favor and take a picture with my phone in case it becomes easier to keep track of the ones that are remaining later on. Look at this. We're so multimedia. Talk about using all our resources on Tales of Praxis. It wouldn't be a fight if you could damage it with anything. Isn't that right, Grail? Oh my goodness. All right. So we had decided at Grail's suggestion that it would be fun to start with Zaveid's side quest, and I absolutely agree. So we have to go to Taliesin. Okay. God bless those bottles, making it relatively easy to warp to places at least. It's nice for side quest management at this point in the game.
evening, Doctor.
Good day. May I order a bouquet? I need it this weekend.
A bouquet? Is it already that time again? You're heading to a ball again this year?
That's right.
A ball?
Same as always, Nico's favorites?
No, I'd like to order lilacs this year.
Lilacs?
No, Grail, that doesn't sound right. I don't think that ever happened.
So, you finally decided to marry?
I have. I could never forget Nico. Not a
I'm
day
telling
goes
you,
by
especially after the way they manage it in
before I'd made up my mind
Berseria, I do like the way
I'd
that they
asked
kind
her
of
to
remapped the fast
wouldn't have
nav
been there
in
on that
Arise.
tragic
It makes a lot more sense to me.
And yet, I have to move on.
I think that's the right decision. We can't give up on our lives over those who have left us. We have to live. I'll make the biggest lilac bouquet you've ever seen. I'm sure Nico will be happy for you. And congratulations.
Thank you.
Why a lilac bouquet?
Lilacs have a special meaning. A treasured memory.
Back on the symbology of flowers,
I
like we were
hope this
talking about a long
message
time ago.
reaches her.
Yes, I believe it will.
It will be nice to start with Zaveid too, because I'm really interested, given, as we've talked about before, how he's really the fixed point of character continuity between the two games, how much more context we get to bridge him between the Zaveid we see in Berseria and the Zaveid we see in Zestiria. Though even were we to get no more context, I would really be satisfied with the way they wrote him at this point. I think even just that final climax with Eizen and Zaveid and Eifried says a lot.
I'm finally done cleaning up the house.
This house has plenty of room. We could add more to our family and still be fine.
But that means I'd have to work that much harder, too.
It won't be so bad. As long as we work together as a family, it'll be okay.
Yeah, and Zaveid will help out too.
Yeah, that's right. We always help each other in times of need, just like the way Zaveid does.
Good guy Zaveid.
Aren't you the bossy one? But I hear you. We'll do it Zaveid's way.
Yeah!
Mixed feelings about Star Ocean 4, it sounds like, Grail.
I hope Zaveid comes over to play soon.
Zaveid.
We should ask them how they know him.
Yes, we should. I'll handle it. I'm Eleanor Hume, an exorcist with the Abbey. I'm terribly sorry to intrude, but I was hoping you would tell me how you all know Zaveid.
Oh, do you know Zaveid too?
Yes, we have a history. I was passing by when I just happened to hear his name, and I thought I'd ask.
Oh, sure. Well, we feel like we owe him a great deal. I guess it all started when he kidnapped us.
Wait.
Kidnapped you?
Let me explain. My wife and I, we were both chefs. And one day, Zaveid showed up out of the blue and practically hauled us back to his home.
Oh yeah, that can definitely be tough, Grail.
Theodora and these children.
Theodora.
Yeah, Theodora? You know, his girlfriend?
His girlfriend.
These children had lost their parents, and Zaveid and Theodora took them in. Then Zaveid rushed us back outside. We were so startled by how sudden it all was. We had no idea what he was going to try to make us do.
But then he asked us if we could cook the children a meal that humans would find delicious. He said that Malakim enjoy eating the same kind of food as humans do, but they lack the skills or know-how to cook it.
At this point, how could we not help? We made them the biggest and best meal we could.
It was huge and delicious. The mabo curry nearly melted my face off.
The pasta margarita was the best. Well, I loved the peach pie.
But yeah, after that, we ended up stopping by the house a lot and started teaching Theodora some recipes.
We lost a child to a demon.
No, I don't think so, Grail.
We'd forgotten we could ever laugh.
We saw Theodora, didn't we?
Theodora and the children. They
Dragon
gave us
Eyes, long
newfound
ago.
Joy in life.
From a kidnapper to a savior, then.
I don't think we knew that was her name at that point, though.
Until they came along, we'd never even realized that Malakim have hearts, just like people do.
It's because they do that they fight alongside you exorcists against the demons. I see that now.
Right. What was Theodora like? I love her. When I was too scared to sleep, she held my hand and let me sleep in her bed. She reminded me of my mom.
But Zaveid was always so mean to me. One time, he even hit me upside the head.
You two were always roughhousing, being dumb and breaking stuff and getting hurt.
Hey, you wanna fight?
Come on, you two. Calm down.
It sounds like these kids were well loved.
Yeah. But one day, without any warning, Theodora left the house and went missing.
And Zaveid went off in search for his love, leaving you two to care for the children.
He asked us to keep the kids safe until he and Theodora returned home.
We just recently moved here, where there's a port, because our old town was too remote.
All right, I think I get it now. Thank you for sharing your story with us.
Zaveid can be a bit rough and tumble, but he's a good man at heart. If he's in trouble, I hope you'll help him out. If not for him, then for the children.
All right.
Wow. You know, it's interesting. Speaking of things that are vivid in my mind because of the study I'm doing of Destiny and Vesperia, but this kind of, if not a through line, then at least a motif in the Tales games of how different characters treat or contribute to the lives of orphans. Like in Destiny, you have Ruti, who was raised in an orphanage and is trying to raise money to save that orphanage, and is basically like a surrogate kind of sister or mom to the kids in that orphanage when she grows up. And then in Vesperia, of course, not as central to the main story, but you have Jaeger, who kind of somewhat inexplicably makes contributions to the orphanage in Capuatorum. And now, of course, you have the portrait of Zaveid supporting these kids. I feel like maybe one of the reasons that that's interesting, and we can think about it more, is just so often in these games you have main characters who either have no family, or their family died, or they're estranged from them. Their party really becomes their family. And so I feel like the way in which they take like the lessons from the party or the different people who've been in their lives and then pass that on to sort of the next generation of kids who are in a similarly like isolated and needful position can say a lot about characters in this kind of world where chosen family units are organized in this way. Oh yeah, Grail, you gotta be careful about those wonky game continuities. I've been there with series before. That was kind of how I felt with I was just thinking about Deus Ex the other day because someone wrote something for me to review about the original Deus Ex. I've never played the original, but I played Human Revolution and Mankind Divided, which also similarly kind of, I know spoils the right word, but they play with the continuity and events from the earlier games, whether or not you've played them.
Theodora. She must be that white-horned dragon, right?
She must be. I don't see any other reason for Zaveid to risk his life protecting a dragon.
To be living with human children who have gone through such trauma, the risk of exposure to malevolence would have been high. And yet she was willing to help them, to take them in. It's no wonder Zaveid wants to save her.
But there's no way to turn her back into a Malak, right?
That's correct.
Which is why you feel you have to kill it. I don't disagree with your conclusion.
But
I think you're going about it the wrong way.
how so?
No one would stand by and permit his former love to be killed before his very eyes. Even when said love has been irrevocably changed. If you could empathize with him and talk things out, I think you two can come to terms without having to fight.
For some things, Eleanor, emotion runs too deep for reason to be heard. If he was so easily swayed that words could convince him, he would already have killed that dragon.
But still...
I'm not in the mood to argue. Let's just go.
If only I could learn how to control those flames.
This is a nice opportunity to get some of Eizen's meditations on the nature of becoming a dragon and that malevolence as well, knowing how he ends up. Yeah, theirs is an interesting case, Grail, the case of the Malik Lafiset and Velvet. I mean, I think my best understanding... they want us to go to Renede now. My best understanding of how the game wants us to think about it is there's so much time put into the idea of characters coming to understand who they were in the past, but also recognizing that who they are in the present is what matters. And kind of past identities, especially in terms of characters who are reborn from someone else, are more of interesting stories or artifacts of history rather than autobiography or something that has a kind of deterministic force on who you are now. So I think that's part of what makes them really interesting as a pair to me. That's only then compounded by the role that they and Inominat as Lafiset's brother play in grounding the future trajectory and metaphysics of the world, is this idea that as humans, they were connected as biological family, and then they're reborn into these things that antecedently have very little to do with their previous connections, but then by virtue of spending time in this group and helping each other to figure out who each other really wants to be in the present tense and what they want to bring about in the future, they use this new kind of found family relationship to become family again, but of a different kind and on their own terms, as opposed to just based on whatever contingent circumstances brought them together in the first place. Interesting, too, because that's really uplifting. It's almost kind of a mirror image, too, of the much more depressing and disheartening portrait you get of Ruti and Leon, right? Because they are biological family, and they never realize it until basically it's already too late for Leon, and Ruti is just left to cope with the aftermath of kind of the implications of the family that impacted her without her even ever realizing that they were there. All right, to Renede.
Is it true that more demons are appearing in other towns? And that some exorcists have suddenly lost their powers?
Yes, I'm afraid it is.
Is everything going to be all right?
Leave her alone, son. You're bothering the exorcist.
I just wanted to know how other places were doing.
In every city, the frequent demon attacks have endangered lives, caused chaos, and hindered travel and trade. Farms have been hit hard, and harvests are delayed. It's certain that there will be food shortages before long.
I thought as much. Well then, that settles it.
Settles what?
I'm going to plant an orchard and some vegetable fields. We've been lucky. We've been spared the worst of it. Also, the soil here is rich and suited for farming. I can't fight the
Yeah, that's interesting, Grail. I can imagine how that would totally recontextualize it.
I want to do what I can to help.
That's wonderful to hear. I'm rooting for you with all my heart.
Well, and the director's cut has a whole Leon side too, right? So
you're going to need someone at
you're
your
going to
side.
necessarily get a different perspective on his character and the nature of that relationship.
I want to do everything I can to find you a match. So on that note, how about it? He's a good boy. You don't have to marry him right away. You can take it slow.
Sorry, I'm kind of married to my
Every
work.
single man in the
What
motherfucking
about you?
Desolation.
The scary girl over there.
Who are you calling scary?
My apologies, miss.
Hey, aren't you forgetting someone?
No way. I mean, love, marriage, that's not important right now. Besides, I have a date with these saplings.
He chose a tree over me.
I wonder if there's something semi-serious we can say about that, Hugs. Like, we've been joking over the last few streams, of course, that every man in this world seems to end up pining after Eleanor, but I mean, I don't feel like that's something that's characteristic of just the male-female relationships in the Tales games more broadly. I wonder whether part of it is supposed to represent like this particular moment in the world's history where these guys who have kind of the burden of building these societies and towns on them also like can't establish relationships or build families because the world is not like well disposed to that right now or something. I haven't really spent a lot of time thinking about that, but the more it comes up, the more I wonder whether there's something more substantive there.
Of calamity and the town was lost. They say a bizarrely
Or it could just be the maiden's curse. That's right, Greg.
And devoured any she caught.
That must be the Lord of Calamity. She dressed as a cackling witch to toy and torment us humans. That monster.
They say she wore a black cloak, a big hat, and rode a broomstick. She jeered and jested at those.
No doubt about that, Hugs. She definitely does not know how to handle it. Not that I can blame her that much.
Mercio really got twisted in the telling.
That's the grapevine for you. But that aside, this is unforgivable. I'd never
Maggie would just use it as more of an excuse to torment the poor guys.
current fashion sense.
This is nice too because going around the world to do side quest cleanup also puts us easily in line to run into all of these great optional conversations, which are filling in a lot of the context in terms of where the world has finally ended up in terms of its citizenry's resolve and what they're thinking of next as the next age of the civilization is set up.
I've got a message from the boss. An
Oh, I think this is Zaveid.
Wanjin has died, and his sizable stash is being sold off.
What do I care about some old pots and paintings?
I doubt you do. This message isn't for you. It's for Eizen.
For me? Why?
This Wanjin person was apparently quite the dragon researcher, amassing old books and materials on them. The boss just figured some of those books might come in handy to you.
I see.
There's a shop out in Port Cadnix that's unloading them as we speak. Might want to get a move on before they're gone.
Port Cadnix. I'll keep that in mind. Give Tabitha my regards.
All right, to Cadnix. But first we can pick up the last conversation here.
That place really was a prison island. Worse, I heard that's where the Lord of Calamity was born.
Where did you hear that?
From an exorcist who lost his malak and caught the demon blight. He screamed it as he was killing his exorcist buddies. It happened in the forest. I managed to hide. I've never been so terrified in my life.
An exorcist turned into a demon.
He must have lost himself when he lost his Moloch. Looks like we really did a number on the Abbey.
If that's true, then it means the Calamity was born right under the Abbey's nose, and they let her escape. How could they let that happen?
I don't know, but I guess it means the exorcists aren't perfect. I thought that if we followed the shepherd, the Abbey would save us. But maybe that was just wishful thinking.
People becoming disillusioned. That's an interesting riff on the expectation we've been led to have too, because over and over again we've heard about the risk or seen the outcome of Malachim and later Seraphim who give in to malevolence and turn into demons or hellions when their vessel becomes corrupted. So the idea that the exorcists were kind of clinging to their ideals and purity based on the Malachim they had tethered, and once they were abandoned by those spirits, they weren't able to maintain that faith in themselves and their place in the world, and it was they who became demons. It's an interesting twist.
Take a look at this. Well, well. Now here's a fine haul.
Great. Let's do this one Ron Gets It style, guys.
Body of newt and mushroom spore, tender parts of prickle bore.
Yeah, there are a few things more depressing than Desolation not being entitled to Modern Warfare Grail.
Good luck out there. Don't come back empty-handed.
That is, I suppose, a fun, interesting explanation that no one was asking for in terms of why warfare never developed beyond, swords and shields and cavalry, even in the time of Tales of Zestiria. That's so specific. Yeah, good catch, though. Oh, absolutely. I mean, that would be how you get mega demons. Like giant continent-sized looking things with, 6 wings, 5 heads. Whatever the name of the giant Hydra dragon monster in Tears of the Kingdom is. I'm sure someone will know. I do feel like that's one of the nice aspects of the sort of, I guess what you might call the medieval simplicity of this world that we see in Zestiria and Berseria, though. It does make it easier in some senses to focus on just the personal, intimate implications of concepts like malevolence and purification and how that cascades from the individual to society. When you start introducing things like magitech on the order of what you would get in something like Tales of Vesperia, for example. It's not that that's not possible. I think it just becomes more complicated and overwhelming, both for the characters embedded in the world and for the gamer reading the game. Carl, yeah, there you go. Exactly. Still remember being more proud than I expected the first time I took down one of those in Tears of the Kingdom. They do give you a good sense of accomplishment. Alright, it was one of the ports. Port Cadnix, that's where we're going. Excellent. Yeah, it would have been radically different, Grail. So much so that part of me, now that we're stopping and thinking about it, kind of wants to see it. I feel like it would be interesting to see, like, what is a King Arthur style, like, Jesus overcomes malevolence world, that also has industrialized society. Especially because Tales of Zestiria already has, like, international conflicts and various well-established nations in pretty complicated disagreements with one another, so adding a layer of modern warfare to it would be, well, as you say, just a completely different bag of tricks.
You there with the big sword. You've got skills, don't you?
Rocket launcher in the stone!
I'm just a mere swordsmith, but
that's the official canonical name of Barrett's gun arm in Final Fantasy VII, if anyone's curious.
Other times, the sword's spirit is too strong for its wielder to master, and it holds its owner in disdain.
You can tell? Even if someone doesn't draw his sword?
Not always, but sometimes. In his case, it was easy. His spirit is in perfect sync with the one residing in his blade.
Really? I never thought about my sword that way before.
I'm sure whoever forged that sword is glad to have a man like you wield his work. I'd love to meet a swordsman to whom I could happily entrust my work. But first I need practice. I've got to sharpen my skills and my...
It's easy, sir. All you have to do is literally turn yourself into a sword. Perfect synchronicity. Masters in their swordians, I'm telling you. I'm gonna have to sit down and write that article when I'm done with this never-ending one. Oh, is that another one of the Norndals? That's a good catch. Wasn't even looking for that.
Okay.
Maybe it's from your sister this time.
You want to read it?
2 birds, 1 stone. We got him.
Please allow me. Now then,
Your cruelty.
Barrett's one of those characters I fall in love with more every single time I play any version of Final Fantasy he's in, if I'm honest, Grail. That was one of my, I don't want to say turnarounds because I've always liked him, but the most recent time I replayed the original version, I really found myself resonating with his whole storyline with Marlene and dying and everything he goes through in terms of thinking about how his personal relationships relate to his eco agenda.
He knows no bounds. You bring deep sadness to a fair maiden's heart with each passing day. Repent or else I'll be forced to intervene. This is your final warning.
And that's it.
Wow, this person sounds really mad.
Eizen, what did you go and do to make the fair maiden cry?
I don't know, but I could try a couple things on you.
My man.
Excuse me if I forget to be scared. The letter mentions a fair maiden. Do you think it refers to your sister?
What?
Oh, you could be onto something. She must be lonely so far away from her brother.
It sounded like she's pretty fond of you.
Are you suggesting that Eizen's sister wrote these letters? I mean, they're certainly unusual, but...
My sister wouldn't write something like this.
Then maybe it's someone who's spending a lot of time around her. Like, a man whose shoulder she cries on.
Damnation, Magilu!
Yeah, Magilu is pushing it, even for her.
Do you know something I don't? Prove it! Bring him here right now!
I think that's the first time Eizen's voice is broken like that in the entire game.
But if you're really that worried, why don't you go see her? Have you not done that since you left?
I did go back once, a long time ago.
Eizen, no, Chrissy, I could see why you would say that. What you're hearing is most overprotective older brother in the world, but I can see why it would come off that way.
But as soon as I showed up, a crowd started to gather.
Yeah, Magilu is just
overcome by malevolence. They turned into
racking up
demons and
all the
attacked my
W's,
sister then
Hugs.
and there.
Do you think it's your fault that happened?
What do you think? I'd moved us to a safe place, low in malevolence and high up a rugged mountainside.
So much for coincidence.
I haven't gone back to see her since.
Changing topics. I know I said these Nordals were a little off, but I think I'm starting to see that as part of their appeal.
Huh?
My point is, no matter how odd it might be, any gift could make a girl happy if it's given from the heart.
Ha, sorry, you can't have one.
My man. Yeah, Grail, I saw that warning online about the end of that quest, but as you said, I think, knock on wood, but at least so far in our normal playthrough, even the nutso bosses haven't been too nutso, so fingers crossed it'll be manageable. Although, who knows, we ran into some challenges at the end of the Zestiria playthrough, so it's anyone's guess. Yeah, Hugs, not to dwell on Barrett too much, but that's one of the many, many things that I really loved about Remake was in terms of the various notes that they fleshed out in the characters, just being able to go into more detail. You can tell already, like, that's one of the reasons that I'm just over the moon excited about Rebirth, because, I mean, even beyond Remake, they do really cool things with Barrett, especially at the end of Remake, but to see where his arc goes next, I feel like they're going to be leaning into all of the right, most interesting parts of his character. Parts that were always there. Like, I take your point about him sometimes being played for laughs, but as you say, I think even in the original, there's definitely more substance to him than some people give him credit for, but I think it's going to be much more incontrovertibly there as they continue with the new games in the series.
I heard that this recent rash of demon attacks is the work of a demon known as the Lord of Calamity.
I heard that too. They say she built a nest in Mount Killaros where she breeds swarms of demons like some kind of queen ant.
That's our Velvet.
Really? That's not what I heard. I heard she's a giant, hideous hag with the head of a dragon and a mouth with gnashing teeth in each hand.
I think they just called you a hideous hag. Mouth hands? Oh, how ghastly!
That's not all. Those mouths spew forth clouds of toxic gas. Any human caught in it turns into a demon.
Wait, is that where demon blight comes from?
I couldn't say. It's just a rumor after all. But I haven't even gotten to the crazy part. This demon has a familiar, a short little thing that uses a huge board to create winds that spread the demon's poison. Rumor says that the nasty little creature takes the appearance of a trickster magician.
She's the Empress of Rumors. It's amazing.
So some short
I love how much they
story
play with that in this
caused
game.
all of this? Kind of makes you hate anyone short, doesn't it?
Yeah, fuck short people.
Calamity is actually a short, phony magician. What do you know?
Woe is me! My cover's been blown! Go, my hideous hag! Devour those meddlesome humans!
Hugs. Yeah, we could go on a tangent on this for the entire stream, but I'll see if I can dig up and repost the lecture that Dan and I gave on the Final Fantasy series last year at PAX West, because without taking us on an enormous tangent, I'll just say I would take heart, because at least based on my reading of the series, I have the exact opposite intuition. I think based on remake alone and how it's situated, not just in terms of the original, but also the stuff that came afterwards, things like Crisis Core and even Dirge of Cerberus, my feeling is that they are leaning much more into Genova than they ever did in the original, and I'm super excited about that, because I think they're making it a much more interesting entity than it even was back in the day. I guess kind of like Barrett when you put it that way, but not like Barrett. We have to sell all of these things that are clogging up our inventory again at some point.
Oh ho ho! If it weren't Eizen, I haven't seen you in forever, laddie.
I heard an antique stealer was handling Wanjin's collection.
We solved it!
That's you?
In this video essay, I will explain everything we can expect in Rebirth. Genova with a gun arm.
Excitable, but he's got a good eye for treasure. He's the one who sold me Fujibayashi's rod.
Oh, the one we used to fish up that demon pot, right?
From the looks of it, you've already sold everything.
I had tons for sale, a huge, massive collection, but the customers came rushing in and bought about everything that weren't nailed down.
And here we are, a week late and a sack of gold short.
Come now, Conjuress. Never underestimate the great Donella. I thought this might happen, so I set something special aside. And it's a real hoot, too. A book written in ancient Avarost.
Why do you have that book?
For years, the Abbey's been scooping up every scrap of paper with Avarost writings. It seems they've a bone to pick with it. But mischievous lads like yourself have always liked getting your hands on such forbidden fruits, yeah?
How much is it?
It's yours. Free, gratis. I've heard the rumors. If this book helps you smash the Abbey to rubble, that's enough for me.
Well, if you're sure, I'll take it.
Of course!
Another ancient book. We're gonna need Grimoire's help to read it.
I had a hunch this might happen, so I actually brought Grim along with me.
Ah!
Let's get this over with.
She was in the corner the whole time.
If you read this part as Snira, then it means should do. But if it's a snick, then it means don't do.
The other word attached to it is pronounced cre. Which of those first two readings feels right to you? Sound it out.
I think it's the ancientest tongue. Didn't we figure that out earlier in the playthrough? I think so.
Kresnik feels right somehow.
All right. And Kresnik translates as?
To retrieve something intact. To dig it out. But if that's what it means, then...
Again, Grail, because I cannot emphasize and re-emphasize this enough, all the way back to Tales of Fantasia, they had the concept of the ancient tongue, which I love. I 1000% thought they made it up to just have a hilarious soundbite for Saray, but no, it has been in the deep DNA of the series since day one.
Yes, this is quite the extraordinary book you found.
Hey, you two mind explaining what's so special in a way the rest of us can understand?
It's research about dragons and Malakim, written long ago by someone trying to figure out how to change a dragon back into a Malak.
They can be changed back? Does the book tell us how it can be done?
The book only contains records of failures and the conclusion it was impossible. But something interesting is written in the corner here.
Unless the intact heart of a white-horned dragon is consumed, a Moloch's blessing shall be everlasting.
By devouring the heart of a white-horned dragon, a Moloch's blessing will be lost. Are you saying that this is a way to break the Reaper's curse? If what this book says is true, yes.
Meaning one Moloch would have to eat another Moloch's heart? That's a little gruesome even by my standards. Wait, was that...
This is such a stupid thing and such an interesting side quest, but did you catch that? Her line was, "That's gruesome even by my standards." But the subtitle was, "That's a little goose. I'm even by my standards." Oh, talk about quality control at Bamco being out to lunch.
Something that actually happened during the ancient Avaros period?
The book states that during the course of the research, some Malachim were discovered to have lost their blessings. But it's not conclusive.
Guess there's no way to know unless we give it a shot.
Do you intend to try?
Ah!
Zaveid, what are you doing here?
A nice old lady at the market told me what you guys were up to.
I guess you know the Bloodwings too, then.
Oh, you know, the ladies just can't keep away from a good man like me. Young and old. They just love me.
Yeah, even by modern Tales standards, Grail, pretty
You guys
nutty.
don't know how to take a joke, do you? Well, some things aren't a joking matter.
Zaveid and Grimoire
Try and kill her.
in the same skit.
And what if I do?
You won't. I'll stop you.
Even if it means you have to kill me?
What is it with you and killing everything?
Oh.
You've been a little too receptive to the whole Reaper thing, huh?
Old innocent
Don't answer a
Zaveid.
question with another question.
Or young innocent Zaveid, I guess.
Sometimes, death can be the release someone desperately needs.
Oh, Eizen, buddy.
I will kill that white horn dragon.
Don't call her a dragon, damn it! She has a name. Theodora.
I have nothing more to say to you.
This is your final warning.
Yeah, I clocked it a lot during Arise, Grail, but what I mostly wanted to blow my brains out about with Arise was just, it was like they couldn't run it through a grammar check. Like there were just a lot of silly, weird errors, but nothing is kind of like hilariously absurd, at least to my recollection, as mistaking the word gruesome for goose. This is great. Well, I'm already thrilled, by the way, that we're taking the time to do this, because one never knows what kind of narrative content you will or won't get with side quests and pretty much any game, but I would say especially JRPGs, since they're so narratively focused, but there's oftentimes so many other kinds of content there. But my goodness, what a one to start out on. Great recommendation, Grail. It really looks like we're going to drive to the heart of the conflict between Zaveid and Eizen that persists even onto Zestiria, because I had assumed that was mostly about their bond over Ifrid, just based on what we got in the main story. But now it seems like we're going down a road that makes a lot more sense and ties them together much more intimately.
Never guessed that devouring a dragon heart could lift the Reaper's
Hey,
curse.
Jellybean, welcome.
Oh, what a glorious day it'll be.
Good to see you. It's been a minute.
The curse part and just become a Reaper at heart. It's like a bad fly. The more you try to shoo it away, the more it sticks around. Do you think Eizen will really go through with it?
Don't ask me.
Well, I can't exactly talk to Magilu and Rokuro about it. Tact is lost on them. You're all I've got.
Hey, Eizen.
What?
You did flex with the first comment today, Grail, so I guess you're allowed to say that.
To get rid of the curse?
Yeah, I am.
Even knowing what she means to Zaveid?
All the more reason to do it.
All the more? What do you mean?
I've said my piece. You can figure it out on your own.
Oh man, now I'm really excited to see where this side quest is going, because like I feel like a second ago I just saw the Matrix for a minute, because we have the idea that Eizen has this opportunity to break his Reaper's curse and be able to spend his life with his sister Edna again. But to do that, he needs to kill the girlfriend and beloved of Zaveid. And of course, we know that Eizen's sad fate in the end is becoming a dragon instead. But then seeing Edna in Tales of Zestiria, she ends up, one, kind of having that surrogate brother relationship and bond with Zaveid. So it's like he's able to offer her what Eizen was trying and failing to provide in the first place. And then also, like, Zaveid as the wind spirit ends up taking the place in the party of Desel, who, as we talked about before, also had a kind of Reaper's curse of just naturally propagating malevolence wherever he went. So, oh man, I hope this comes together as well as I'm imagining it might, because I feel like all of those different pieces of symbolism could mesh in a super fucking tight way between the two games. Whoa, mommy, I love it when a Tales game comes together in the post-game.
Our scout ship has returned.
All right, where are we going next?
Show us your determination.
Hellevese. All right.
Well done. I'd expect no less from Ifrit's crew.
It worked! Huge success!
Oh, I said mommy. Is that not an expression that the kids use these days? Oh, mommy! I think that's an Arrested Development thing. I think I picked that up in my vernacular from Job.
Show him how Ifrit's crew can sail.
Yeah, come on, Hugs. Is Velvet not the most tactful Lord of Calamity you've ever seen? Holdolf's got nothing on her. I'm going to take that as a W, Grail, that after all of the time you've spent in our live book club together, I can still do things to catch you off guard. Is showing everyone my personal repeat hanging out on the couch something that catches anyone off guard? I guess that's probably par for the course at this point. She's lurking just beside the green screen. She's very patient and understanding because I don't want to brag, but my dog is obsessed with me, and she used to get very, very miffed when I would stream because, I mean, she can't hear anything. She just sees Dad sitting at his desk and talking to himself for 3 hours, but she's become a silent, loyal companion through it. And then it's cute because dogs get so adjusted to patterns, right? So she knows the cadence of when I'm signing off for the night, and she'll jump off of my couch and like immediately start running around my chair and getting excited for Dad to come back and start paying attention to her again. I think I messed with my webcam. Let me see if I can fix it a bit. Beep, beep, beep. Yeah, that's better. There we go. I know, that's what I'm saying, Grail, but you know, it's like, I think it's like JRPGs in general, right? Yeah, the quality may vary, but you got to appreciate it all the more for finding those needles in the haystack, the diamonds in the rough, all of those magical surprises in quality in one way or another, because there's so many. Although it never hurts to stack the deck by just playing a bunch of games in one fantastic series like Tales, or even dedicating an entire insane analytical undertaking to them. Oh, thank you, Hugs. Yes, we think it's a blessed relationship, too. I'll tell you, the thing I'm most excited about in this third act portion of the study I'm doing on Vesperia and Destiny is an extended and motivated character study of Rapide, mostly to do justice to my dog, because that is the majority of the way according to which I organize my analytical approach to games. Well, I don't know if I can throw stones at a random bunny girl confrontation, given that we ended up in the deep post-game of Tales of Zestiria having that unreasonably epic Dark Turtles fight more than once. It's all relative, isn't it? Okay, Chrissy. Okay, Grail. I'll try to figure a way out. Like, it was easier when I used to have the much lower quality stream, just with the camera pointed at the couch so that we could both be involved. I haven't figured out a way to get her at the desk with me yet. Although I think in the past we've speculated about trying to get her in a kind of doggy Bjorn so she could be on my stomach. I don't know whether she would love or hate that. Knowing her, it would probably vary stream by stream, which I guess could be part of the fun of it. You never know which Eevee you're gonna
A
get.
group of exorcists got taken out by the Whitehorn.
Again? But they sent praetors after it this time.
Doggy cam I have thought about. If I end up investing in another webcam, it'll just be focused on her. And when we reach certain benchmarks, we'll reward everyone with an Eevee stream.
What's going to happen to the kingdom?
We have to keep
Not a bad idea, actually, as I play it out. Maybe I'll do that. We can work it into the next Tales game we stream.
We need to ensure the public's safety. We'd better make sure we know the evacuation routes.
Yes, sir.
Whitehorn. They must be talking about Theodora.
Not to be confused with White Horse.
If the dragon is that badly wounded, then now's my chance. Let's head for the Guyberg Icefield.
With people talking about that dragon so much, I wouldn't be surprised if we ran into Zaveid.
Yeah. And if he and Eizen butt heads again, I don't think we'll be able to avoid a fight this time.
Eizen said he was going to kill that dragon because she's important to Zaveid. And he said that to kill was to save. What could he mean by that?
Ooh, trepidation. It's a good question, Grail. So, like I said, I was reviewing all of the available content, and so I know that the cameo stuff is, what's the right way to say this? Relevant to games we have talked about a lot, which we have not yet arrived at. Now, of course, that has not stopped me in the past. But I think, you know, we're kicking off the week. It's Monday. We're just starting the side content. What I'm thinking is, why do I bother opening stuff that's still closed at this point? I'm not going to have room in my inventory. What I'm thinking is, you know, let's start with the character-focused stuff that gives us more context into Berseria, and then we'll see how we're going. If we end up fatigued and don't want to bother, I don't think that'd be a huge loss, but I think it would be fun to try to make the time for it, assuming we're not totally gassed on Berseria by the end of the week. I haven't done it before. I think maybe it's just because I was playing this for the first time with my, at the time, girlfriend, and it was her first JRPG ever, so we were probably a little gassed from the experience by the end of the main story, so I don't think we really did much of the side content at all. So it's all new for me, which is a fun proposition. But yeah, let's see how it goes. Yeah, and I mean, that's one of the things I always love the cameo stuff for, and I think it's a testament to how cool the mosaic of Tales games is, right? Because on the one hand, of course, after you are familiar with games, then seeing those characters show up elsewhere and getting these side adventures, that's always fun. But then even if you're not familiar with the games, like fighting someone like Gar in a Colosseum battle before I'd done Tales of Destiny or Philia, like then how cool to get that sort of preview of them, even without much other context in battle, and then actually come to know them as characters and individuals in their game when I played Tales of Destiny. So I think there's a lot to recommend both approaches there. She was actually following when I started Xenoblade Chronicles 2, because that was contemporary with it, as I'm sure you know. But I think she was playing with the handicap of not having played the first one. And again, JRPGs were not her, let's say, natural milieu. And so she was kind of batting at a disadvantage from a very intense JRPG. And Tales of Berseria was new at the time, so, you know, going back to play an older game like Abyss outside of the context of something like Tales of Praxis would have been a different proposition. But it was fun. We both really enjoyed this, even without the other context. It can be really fun. And I'm not saying that to say you should not introduce, you know, your partner or significant other or whatever to JRPGs if they've never played it. I think it can be a huge amount of fun, and especially this kind of story that has so much nuance and so many opportunities to invest in characters. It can be a really like a joyous thing to do together. Well, let's see if we can get you to articulate your reasons behind Gar better after you read my treatise on Destiny and Vesperia, because I'm sure that'll be one of the many things that shows up in there. Not Gar so much as some of the others, but he does. I think he plays an interesting role in some of the second act, like ideological debates, which makes sense because he becomes a king in the middle of the game in a way that I was not expecting. All right, so we are going to the eastern side of Miercio, and then we're going south. Okay. It's nice that this guide actually gives the directions in terms of warp points as opposed to just the more specific area designations that you get in the game for doing a bunch of quick jumping. That helps to keep me sane a little bit. All right, we're going south. One thing that I do talk about in the article, and this will be fun for us to dig into, Grail, when I publish, is I think there's a very touching element to the relationship between Gar and Igtenos, where Igtenos, is damaged. He doesn't have a sentience. He has no sense of agency, and so he kind of therefore develops a lot of guilt and takes on the responsibility for failing to protect Gar's dad, the former king of Pandaria. And so, like, the first thing he says when the party finally resuscitates him is, Gar, I'm sorry I failed your family. I know I was with them for so long, and I wish I could have done better. And Gar just immediately forgives him and absolves him of everything in a very just mature way. I think there's something very simple yet resonance about that kind of maturity. We've talked about that before, Grail, right? Like the name changes in some of those early ones, especially Destiny, are just funny and drastic sometimes. Well, what the hell is Aaron doing? I want a quick save. That's what I'm doing. All right. Oh, are we halfway through the stream? I'm going to aggressively push this just because I want as much data as possible on what we ought to play next. If you didn't hear my aggressive top of the stream advertisement about voting for which Tales game we're going to do next, we're working through the side quests and post game, but I want your input on what the next one will be. I can always choose, but it'll be proportionately more fun according to how much group input we get. Well, but had Iggy been sentient, he at least could have presumably guided the family or even called Gar back to action, in a way that's consistent with the other Swordians. I think that's his guilt. But no doubt, one of the things that is really interesting about the Swordians, and part of why I wanted to write the study, was this idea that they have these quests, they have these intentions, but they are totally dependent on characters outside themselves in a radically different context to enact any of that, because they don't have any freestanding agency or even ability to express themselves. What's your game, Grail? You were saying that about Eternia last time. Are you just trying to confuse and disorient people?
She's hurt, just like they said.
Is this really how you mean to lift your curse?
I'm not the cursed one.
I'm game.
It's nice that we got a full cutscene for this. Now, who could that be?
I told you, that ain't happening on my...
Oh, the Zaveid battle theme! I missed this.
If you stop me...
What else? I'm going to figure out a way to save you.
If that's what you want to try, then go ahead. But know that I'm not going to stop.
You know, I just don't get it. How could a guy like Ifrit
No, not Artorias.
so hell-bent on senseless killing?
Sometimes, to kill someone is to save them.
Who the hell is going to be saved by being killed? There's not one damn person in the whole world!
Oh, wow.
No matter what happens, you can't give up on living. That's my creed.
Well then.
Guess we're doing this.
What? Why does it have to come to this? You both want to save the same person.
Sometimes, you just have to fight these things out.
Yeah.
Boy, this is amazing.
I ain't holding back, Eizen. Good. If you want to stop me, then fight to kill.
So not only are we witnessing the link between Berseria and Zestiria in terms of Zaveid's relationship with Eizen and subsequently with Edna, but also we're getting that missing connective tissue in terms of what it is that changes Zaveid's mind about his philosophy of killing, because that was one of the first things we noticed about him. And we're introduced to Zaveid as this kind of renegade seraph in Zestiria who is ready and willing to kill, whereas the shepherd and his party won't do that. And then we see him much earlier in Berseria, and he's almost the opposite, like we just saw in this cutscene, totally refusing to see any value in killing everyone. And I think what's going on with Theodora and Eizen's perspective on the value of honoring life through death is almost certainly going to be what changes his mind here. Well, that bums me out. What a great theme. Boy, this dude's not playing around. Ah, souls! Give me those souls. Thank God. I think that's a good question, Grail, and we can talk about it once we see it all the way through. What I would say as a general comment, this is something that I talk about in my work a lot, is I think it's very intuitive to have the reaction you're talking about, where saying, man, you know, if something is relegated to optional content, it's not as important as the rest of the game, and that's why the developers kind of make it something that people don't have to see. I don't feel like that's always the fairest way to treat it, because I think sometimes one of the things that I really love about video games, and especially JRPGs, that gives them a cool storytelling language you don't get in other media like the film or the novel, is the idea that some kinds of content and some windows into the story only make sense if you have to invest extra effort in order to access them. So I think sometimes it can be part of the special meaning or the theme that part of the story is trying to express, to say that this is something that's really important to these characters in the world, but for some reason it doesn't make sense as part of the main narrative. And so in order to respect the characters, see them on their own terms, pay sufficient attention to them to really uncover the heart of their character, there can be all sorts of motivating reasons. But according to that, you have to actually go out of your way in order to see these additional windows into the story. So my gut, knowing what I do about Tales and these characters, is that this probably falls into that category of content that was intentionally and thoughtfully made optional. But it'll be interesting to track that and talk about it as we go on. Yeah, this does feel true to Zestiria in that I remember, especially during my first playthrough of Zestiria on a harder difficulty, I had a bear of a time with basically all of the Zaveid fights. So they definitely know how to make him a challenger. Oh my God, can I have souls? Girl keeps losing all her souls. I swear to God. You're talking about the lecture that we gave at PAX West about JRPGs, Chrissy, the idea of optional depth and being able to discover characters in new ways according to the amount of investment you give to their side content. It's kind of a catch-22, right? Because, again, to go back to what we were saying about guides and similar content earlier in the stream, I think there is a sense in which what I'm saying is if you want to understand the totality of the story and how it wants you to experience the characters, you do kind of have to be sufficiently invested to do all of the side content for that reason. But I think games also make it the case by representing their worlds in this way that if you're not sufficiently interested, then no, you're not going to have to make the effort to do the optional content. It's going to be logical that you don't see that stuff because you aren't sufficiently invested. And in terms of your experience with the game, as the kind of player with the interests that you bring to it and how you represent yourself in the story, it's logical that you abstain from that content, right? So it is definitely kind of a, well, as I said, a catch-22 in terms of one needing to be that invested in order to get all of it out of the game. Like, this is something that is coming up in what I'm talking about with Tales of Vesperia as well, because it's very much that kind of game where a lot of what's borne out in terms of what it means for characters to invest in and empower one another is also what they show and give you insight into as the player in terms of having the opportunity to invest a ton of extra time in very character-specific side quests that are key to fully actualizing those characters. So if you want to see through the totality of the game, I would say one does have to do all of that stuff, but that's still a contingent proposition, right? And to read and to experience the story doesn't necessarily mean you have to be that invested in it. Sometimes we turn TV shows on in the background, just have something on, doesn't mean we really sit down and read them as such. The spamming does make sense, Grail. Maybe I should get out of the habit of that. Now that we're in the post game and it really matters.
She's still a threat.
I would say if I'm reading you right, Hugs, Vesperia is kind of an example of that too, just because there are so many different dimensions to its narrative and optional paths to go down. Not in terms of divergent outcomes, but just in terms of many different optional scenes and side storylines and things like that. You're right, though. I think there is a special kind of game where if there's enough choice and little avenues for optional investment, one can feel as though, oh, if I'm really invested in this game, I can take the time to do everything. Xenoblade, as you're talking about, Chrissy, this is kind of what I'm talking about with Xenoblade. Like, you get sufficiently into it that you want to do everything. It rewards doing literally everything, but there are also sufficiently many choices and opportunities for investment along the way that you can feel as if you've really colored the playthrough with your experience and investments as a particular player if you only choose to go down those particular side quest avenues that resonate with you and leave the others by the wayside. If you're a completionist, of course, that's going to be a whole other impulse and another story, but that's neither here nor there.
Zaveid, are you okay?
Yeah, I'm not dead yet, at least.
Thank you for saving me.
I should be thanking you. I'm just glad you're not hurt.
Me?
That's right, kid. Nothing would hurt Theodora more than the harm of...
Oh, man.
Theodora.
The thing is, even when a child's lost their parents, their family, even when despair fills their heart, if you hold their hand, they'll squeeze back. Those hands, frozen cold from fear and insecurity, will start to feel warmth again. That warmth, a tiny spark deep within, can rekindle their feeling of being alive. Because they possess the determination to keep on living. That's why Theodora never turned her back or gave up on a child. She was more passionate about life than anyone I've ever known.
And that's why you're protecting her.
Just how long do you plan on cleaning up after that dragon?
She's Theodora.
Once a Moloch becomes a dragon, there's no turning back.
And you think that gives you the right to kill her?
You talk like you have such noble intentions, but you're not fooling anyone. You just want to lift your Reaper's curse.
I'm not the one who's cursed.
You're telling me there's some other Reaper out there?
Don't answer a question with another question.
Shut the hell up! You're all talk and no fight. You're a damn coward. That's all you are. In the future, if you try to lay even a finger on Theodora, well, there's going to be hell to pay.
Give me hell if you like, but think about one thing first. Think about what she taught you about living, and consider what it really means to be alive.
Why does it have to be like this? I get that their creeds mean a lot to them both. But isn't that all the more reason for them to try to understand each other? But instead, they resort to fighting without even listening to each other first. How can they be like this?
Yeah, I don't want them to fight either. But there's something else I can't figure out.
Is it about why Eizen's so intent on killing that dragon?
That's part of it. What I can't figure out is what he means when he says that killing can also save someone. And how he's not the one with the curse.
Maybe he feels pity for Theodora, and how she's doomed to keep on living as a dragon.
Yeah. What does it really mean to live?
This topic sure got deep fast.
Yeah.
You gotta ask our boy Luke. Luke's whole story is trying to figure that shit out, my friends. Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, maybe in the post game of a JRPG, it's a good time to talk about this. I feel like, I mean, I'm interested in what you all think about this. My sense is, it's not quite ludonarrative dissonance so much as it is just like a distinction in player perspective and why people come to these games. Because, Chrissy, I take your point that a lot of people, you know, when there are so many details and nuances in the story, I think many people are inclined to do what we're doing here on Tales of Praxis and engage with them in a literary way. But I think, at least to me, in terms of how I see the community, JRPGs are this interesting beast where sometimes you get people who are really engaged with the story. Sometimes you get people who are really into optimizing the gameplay and cranking up the challenge and all of that stuff. Sometimes you get people who are really trying to and interested in doing both. But you do, like, sometimes it's funny for all of the nuances of story, like Grail is kind of alluding to, you will sometimes get people, and I always, like, am stupefied by this even when I go through and watch playthroughs of the games that I'm writing about to be able to find the right footage to cite and use in the articles and things like that. You'll get people who just, like, it almost doesn't feel like they're playing something with a story. Like, you look at the way in which they're engaging it, and it's more like they're just going through it as one would a game of Tetris or something like that, which, as I said, you know, to each their own. And I think it's a testament to the, like, multifacetedness of JRPGs, even within the broader universe of video games, that they can support those very different kinds of play types and sorts of player. But oftentimes I feel it can be harder for those different types of player to talk to and communicate with each other than it ought to be, given that they both putatively like the same game or the same types of games. But hey, you know, that's one of the lessons of JRPGs, facilitating the conversations between people with radically different perspectives, like Eizen and Zaveid here. See, it's all connected. So hopefully little efforts and venues for conversation like Tales of Praxis can help with that. Wow, that's fascinating, Hugs. Yeah, so can you tell me more about that? Like, what's your mindset there? Help us get inside your head in terms of, like, how you approach it, that's the case. You just really love the challenge of that particular type of gameplay, so you go to it for that? Is that the thought?
Take a look at this. Well, well.
Ho ho!
Fine haul. Great.
Who needs a white dragon horn? Eizen's luck has turned around. Reaper's Curse? What Reaper's Curse? Alright. Centurion Isles all cleared. Goodbye, Emil. Goodbye, Ratatosk. Let's go back to the Crystal Iron Sea.
Scout ship setting sail.
Oh, yeah, interesting. So you're still engaging with it for the story as much as the gameplay, but you feel as though, in terms of how you're engaging with the overall package, some representations of the story are redundant or unwarranted and can interrupt your mode of engagement with it. That's really interesting. See, I never would have thought of it that way. Yeah. See, I can't bring myself to do that, but I can vividly picture the sorts of cutscenes that you're talking about, specifically in Kingdom Hearts or just in games more broadly, so yeah, I definitely appreciate that. Yeah, Chrissy, what I would say in terms of that frustration, and I imagine we've probably talked about this at some point before, but like Tales of Praxis is a good example of this too. I think it's fair to say, I hope it's fair to say, that those of us who are here and interested in reading games in this way recognize that while people can be interested in gameplay versus story, gameplay is certainly part of the storytelling language in these games. Like, think about the number of hours we've spent in this playthrough thinking about the mechanics of things like, okay, the combat system, and what does that say about the characters, or how does that particular gameplay choice impact this theme that we've been thinking about in the story, stuff like that, right? And so, like, if you find someone you really want to get thinking about the storytelling of games who is just sort of dogmatically resistant to that, I have personally found in my past that simply taking the time to meet them in terms of the topics they're interested in and say, hey, yeah, you're really interested in this part of the gameplay or this system or this particular boss fight. Have you thought about what this says in terms of like this character and their motivation or how it is that they're trying to engage with the world? Not to say that that's always going to work, but I think that can be like a nice, well-motivated way in to help people to see how you think about games through their own mode of engagement with it. Yes, and Grail. I wouldn't argue that, but also, and I mean, not to make this into a Kingdom Hearts fest either, but since we already rolled through Final Fantasy VII, like the fact that they can get away with copy pasta for most of the worlds in Kingdom Hearts 3 in a way that is very unlike the rest of the series, but then also have some of the most trenchant thematic commentary happen with like dialogue between Woody and Buzz and Xehanorts in a Toy Story world, like 3 has some interesting range, put it that way. Yeah, duh. Hug's bringing us back to the true anchor of the conversation here on Tales of Praxis. It's amazing. From the mouth of Woody, right? Leave it to Toy Story. I guess that is kind of on point with, again, Toy Story's theming and also the theming of Kingdom Hearts.
We will need to be extremely careful.
I hope this is okay. Nope, can't hit it with anything. Yeah, I think in general, Chrissy, I feel like the culture is catching up in terms of being excited to engage with it holistically, so I'm optimistic about where things are going at least. Oh, is this the thing that's resistant to everything, Grail? Alright, well, I'm not going to argue that. I was a little worried as soon as we went into this fight that it felt like the one you were talking about. No, the real topic was the gun arms that we made along the way. Keep up, Grail. It's all about Barrett. Barrett is the source code to everything. All right. Okay, now we go back to Renede. That's not the end. Oh! Or Aaron makes a big fat misclick and totally takes us to the wrong place. If only my thumbs worked. Let's try that again.
The boss has a request for you. Not a message, but a request. A whitehorn dragon has been showing up in the Aldina Plains. The boss wants you to kill it. Since when did the Bloodwings become agents of justice? Interested in protecting the world from dragons? Hey, we're not out to save the world. This is just to put an end to Zaveid's madness.
Oh.
Did Zaveid do something in particular?
He's been harassing exorcists, trying to get more information on that dragon. That's got the Abbey on alert, which makes trouble for us. Our spies in the Abbey can't operate under these conditions.
And that's where we come in. Does that mean Zaveid is in the Aldina Plains too?
Got it in one. Just be careful. Zaveid and that dragon are even more agitated than usual.
Let's go.
Are you gonna fight Zaveid again?
The time has come.
Yeah, I do. To your joke point, Hugs, I feel like that is sort of the one downside to saving all of these side quests to the post game and just rolling through them all at once. It does feel more natural to just encounter those bits of information here and there when they become available across the course of the game, as opposed to, oh yeah, suddenly everything in the world is about this whitehorn dragon. Funny how that happens. But hey, I will say, well, I really love the naturalistic flow and cadence of something like a Symphonia or a Vesperia, where quests are available for a certain point at which it makes sense in the story, and then stop becoming available if you fail to interact with them. It is nice, and I am grateful from a quality of life perspective that we have the opportunity to focus and dig into the main story and then go back to all of the side stuff afterwards without fear of really missing anything, as we're doing here and as we did in Zestiria. Grail, is that your not so backhanded way of saying that I'm cooler than Barrett? Because I don't know if I would agree with you, but I will take the compliment. Can I muster my best Barrett impression for this post-game stream? The planet's dying, Cloud! I don't know. I feel like that's lower ranked than my Bienfu impression or my Shadow impression from Tales of Symphonia, but if we ever end up streaming 7 or Remake, I can work on it some more. Yeah, I'm with you, Hugs. I will say, like, I agree with you, but one of the things we've talked about so much, especially in terms of the Tales games, is just how replayable, especially the early ones are, and how conducive they are to New Game Plus. And I loved playing Symphonia a million times as a kid, and I do think part of that was trying to, like, unlock all of the different causal relationships of the world and trying to figure out, largely without a guide, or even with a guide, because guides sometimes don't help you that much if you just miss things, like, oh, okay, this is when I can do that, and this is why it makes sense that this happens here. And piecing together that network is kind of a fun thing that I would say is kind of becoming a lost art, as many modern games veer in the other direction of making things always available, which is nice for quality of life, but you do lose that kind of engagement a little bit, I think. All right, we're going to Stonebury to reach the Aldina Plains, and then we go to the plateau. Oh, yes, okay, I remember where we are. Oh, we gotta go all the way back to the mountain peaks. Well, that's okay. We have a geoboard. The world is our oyster. Like, you want me to stream Final Fantasy VIII, Chrissy, or are you saying I just need to play it? I do know that I just need to play it. I did have a fleeting thought back last year when Dan and I lectured on the whole Final Fantasy VII series, like, oh, between that and my Xenoblade Chronicles adventure, I should just use my JRPG endurance stat before I lose it to play through the whole Final Fantasy series front to back, but then I decided, well, no, I didn't decide. Then Bamco announced they were doing the Tales of Symphonia remaster, and I decided, you know what? That series has just meant more to me, and I want to do it justice. So if I'm going to spend my endurance stat on anything, better that. But that's not to say I won't go back to Final Fantasy at some point. I'm sure I will. But God knows the last thing I'm going to do is stop Tales of Praxis now that we've come this far. So no one needs to worry about that. When Sudoku puts his mind to something, ill-advised or not, he sees it through. I don't know which Tales character that makes me, but certainly one of them. Hugs, did you clip my horrible Barrett impression? I'll have to tweet that out after this. I'm sure Dan will give me plenty of well-earned shit. I will say, Final Fantasy games do have a special way of making me want to analyze them right away after I finish them. Like, still, one of my favorite things that I did in the last few years was the study of Final Fantasy IX that I published right after I played that back in 21. Although I do really think the more distance I've gotten from it and the more I've revisited the Tales series, I think part of why that resonated with me so much was that I played it right alongside Tales of Arise. And you might not think antecedently that those two games go together, but they really bring something cool and magical out in each other, I gotta say. Like an unexpected food pairing or something. Oh no, Hugs, is that the insight? My tenacity just makes me... I feel like that's even like just the description of most of the main Tales antagonists, not even just Artorias. Oh... Here I was hoping you'd say, oh, he's Lloyd, even like he's Carol, he's Mikleo, but nope, he's Mythos. He's Van. He's dissed. Oh god, am I dissed? I'm not funny enough to be dissed.
Look, it's Zaveid and the dragon.
This takes me back. I remember the first time I tried to talk to you. You smacked me pretty good.
Oh. I don't know if I'm ready for this.
Man, that hurts. You sure don't know how to hold back, do you?
I can live with Van Grail. Van at least has gravitas.
Zaveid! Eizen, why?
Just watch.
What?
So, you're just waiting for me to die so you can help yourself to her heart. Is that it? Sorry, but that's not happening. I'm not dying here, and I won't let you kill her.
I'll decide what I do, Zaveid.
Fine! Then I'm deciding to help Zaveid, no matter what you tell me, Eizen. Zaveid!
This dragon wouldn't hesitate to attack a child, or the man who risks his own life to protect it. Tell me, Zaveid, who is this white-horned dragon?
It's heartbreaking to see Zaveid so broken and pathetic.
Your creed was to never give up on living.
That's never a color we've seen on him.
Happen. If you really believe that, would you say that you're living right now? Because to me, you don't look like someone truly living.
Oh yeah, that's a classic clip, Grail. You've clipped some good shit over the streams.
I understand now. Eizen really isn't the one who's cursed. Theodora he's actually saving.
It's time to lift this curse.
Oh, the battle theme is Zaveid's sad acoustic theme. God. Man, I'm not going to withdraw anything I said earlier about the value of optional content as optional, but man, I'll put it this way. With the insane quality and thematic insight of this, I'm really glad that we're taking the time to play it. And honestly, it's kind of breaking me right now in ways that even the finale of the main story didn't. Because then we wouldn't be crying, Grail, we'd be stoked. And we can't be stoked right now. Oh no, I did. I will happily own that. I was definitely devastated and moved by the finale of this game, even more so than I was expecting. It was, even among Tales games, I think it comes together in a beautiful way, but this is just... You know what it is? It's like... This is just going to be the stream where Aaron says everything is like Vesperia, because I cannot emphasize this enough. I spent the last 72 hours just working on Vesperia, but it strikes me as similar in terms of having a really touching and well put together main story, but also, as we were saying, the more time you spend to invest in those little optional portraits of the various characters you come across, like, those are little, well-composed, like, deeply moving short stories unto themselves, even beyond the scope of the main story, and this really resonates with me in that regard. Yeah, we both did, Grail. No shame. That's how it should be.
If you kill her, if you kill Theodora, I'll never forgive you, Eizen.
I know.
Wow.
Eizen, how could you?
Oh.
What? Malevolence?
Wow.
Eizen!
Stay back!
I'll have to add it to the list, Chrissy.
This is...
Eizen! Zaveid!
No! It'll get you too!
But Velvet, just look at them!
Oh my god.
It's that fire again.
Amazing it can extinguish that much malevolence. But the dragon...
Please! Turn back to normal! I can do it! With this flame! Zaveid!
It's over.
But...
Thank you.
I think that's the first time we've ever seen someone other than Zaveid use Siegfried in that way. That's right.
What
Why didn't you
Gotta channel his persona.
What? Did you want me to eat its heart?
Don't answer a question with another question.
The Reaper's curse is mine to bear alone. The danger of becoming a dragon, however, is a curse upon all Malachim.
All that malevolence. It's going to take its toll on you, too.
Yeah, I can already feel it starting. It won't be long before I wind up like her.
You'll have to leave your pirate buddies before things turn ugly.
I'm the first mate on Ifrid's ship. So, to be honest, it's probably just as well. I'd rather end up a dragon than have this curse hijack my ship and my life anymore. But I do fear one thing. I'm afraid that when I turn into a dragon, I could end up hurting the very people I want to protect.
Theodora couldn't even recognize anyone she loved anymore. You saved her, Eizen. By killing her. Before all this, Theodora was a kind woman. She never wanted to hurt people, and she loved more deeply than anyone I've ever known.
Yeah.
Sometimes to kill someone is to save them. You have someone you're trying to protect too, don't you?
Oh yeah, that's interesting, Chrissy. I wouldn't have thought of that.
What's she like?
She's like an early blooming flower. Wise for her age. She's got it all together. Sometimes has to treat me like I'm the kid. She cries too easily, but deep down, she's so strong.
Sounds like someone I'd like to get to know better. Who knows? Maybe I'll even marry her.
Zaveid.
Don't you worry. I won't make a move until I've killed you.
And kids, as we now know, he really did wait.
Consider it revenge for Theodora. I'll be the one who finally puts you out of your misery.
Wow.
But I'll only kill you once you've stopped being yourself. Only then.
You sure?
Yeah. I swear by my true name, Filk Zadea, Zaveid the Oathkeeper.
Ufemu Wexu. That's my true name.
I'll remember it.
Is there really no other way? There must be something besides turning into a dragon or getting yourself killed, right?
In the end, what matters isn't whether we get killed or not. It's whether we can take control over the direction of our own lives.
That's what it means to really be alive.
That sounds sad. And hard. But I understand. And I'm going to live life in my own way, too.
Well then, I hope we'll see each other again.
Where are you going?
Wherever the wind takes me.
Wow. We can be sure that the promise will be fulfilled. We helped them to do that. Oh my god, that was amazing. Wow, that was a hell of a side quest on which to start out. Well, I'll be honest, on two fronts. I need a second to process that, and also I've been drinking way too much coffee today because your boy has been plugging through this work and also his day job. So I'm going to dip for 1 second, and I will be back in 30 seconds, and we'll talk about that. Oh my god, what an event to talk about. Yeah, I would have left it on the dog cam, except I know my four-legged daughter well enough to know that as soon as I got up, she was going to also move, which she did. Yeah, I completely agree. I think that's one of the things that is really interesting to me about this Tales series in general, Hugs, and you definitely get it with the duologies like Dawn of the New World and Symphonia, and even the way they resonate with Fantasia or Berseria with Zestiria. The idea that, I think I said this on a previous stream, and I've been thinking about it in terms of the study I'm working on with Destiny and Vesperia now as well. You very rarely get literal sci-fi time travel in the Tales games, but they all kind of feel sort of time travel-ish to me, in the sense that the themes that they're meditating on and the relationship between different elements of their story are oftentimes atemporal, or relate to each other in ways that are not purely chronological. And I think that what we just saw with Berseria is a really beautiful example of that. Yeah, all the VODs, by the way, are on our YouTube channel, so check them out if you're interested. I think you could do a whole study just thinking about, speaking of analyzing special weapons in the games, analyzing Siegfried and tracing like its impact and its symbolism in terms of what it is to not only fight malevolence, but also sacrifice your being for the sake of purifying others. Because remember, it's this special tool that has the power of purification, and it's also the final like Excalibur style weapon that Sorey uses to sacrifice all of his seraphim for the sake of overcoming Heldalf. And remember, because Laphicet, who would become Mautellus, just used his powers of purification in that fight, and really, I think, found a lot of resolve that came out at the end of the main story when he became Mautellus. And also, a key part of that use of Siegfried in the final battle in Zestiria is not just to stop Heldalf, but really to purify Mautellus and save the land. So you have that continuity as well. And I was relieving myself of all that coffee, and I was thinking about this in the bathroom. Like, I think there's something really interesting about the nature of that weapon, and like how these different characters are wrestling with malevolence, not just in a vacuum in terms of what it'll do to them, but like what they're willing to take on for the sake of others. We spoke a few streams ago about the idea of Velvet as this kind of sin eater, where when they first start calling her, like society first starts calling her the Lord of Calamity, she pretty immediately and readily says like, yeah, I don't care if you call me that. If it helps you to blame me for your problems, that's fine. It's whatever. And I feel like there's something maybe thematically similar, but to me even more impactful about what we saw with Eizen and Zaveid, because you would really want to look at all of those scenes and moments between them in both of the games to really do this justice. But I think there's something really interesting, not only in how like Eizen breaks the curse, as they like talk about without naming the curse that is on Zaveid because of his like broken relationship with his loved one who's become a dragon, but also how like in order to purify and save like Zaveid and give him another chance at life, Eizen takes on that malevolence. And it seemed pretty clear, at least from that scene, like the way they were talking about it, it seemed like Eizen killing that dragon was really, in some sense, the start of the malevolence that would make him a dragon. And I found myself wondering, like, okay, remember, it's easy to just abstract away from the specifics of what malevolence conceptually means in these games when we're just thinking about, oh, malevolence is this negative force in the world that turns you into a dragon. But remember, it's this specific friction between what you believe in and what it is that you do in the world. And so I was wondering, like, well, why is that? What would explain in terms of, like, this relationship between Eizen and Zaveid and Theodora and what it is that they're standing for? Like, why would this act of Eizen's create that malevolence in him? And I think, without thinking about and tracing it more, where I would want to start in thinking about that and why I think it's really interesting is, you know, there's this whole emphasis from the get-go, from the time Zaveid first meets the party, on the fact that they're willing to kill, whereas Zaveid doesn't want to bloody his hands. He doesn't think there's any value to killing anyone because there's always that possibility for redemption in life, like he was talking about with why he admires Theodora so much. And I think there's something really sad where even for characters who are like totally open to the idea of killing, like the thing that creates that friction in Eizen is recognizing like the people who need to be like saved through death because they've lost themselves are also the ones like Theodora who most deserve to still be alive and have access to that sense of self, and yet they've lost it. And so I can see that like the friction that would beget malevolence in terms of like wanting to value and respect that life, but only being able to do that through death. And there's something just really sad, and like I said, just pulls at my heartstrings in some ways even more than the conclusion of the main story. This idea that Eizen, like, even though that's a malevolent action, it's something that he so believes is the right thing to do that he's willing to take on and eat that sin for the sake of Zaveid and Theodora, and to teach Zaveid that that is something that can be a worthy action so that Zaveid can then repay him for it when Eizen himself becomes a dragon by virtue of what it was that he did for Zaveid and Theodora. Yeah, I'm so glad we got that touchstone on their characters, wrapping up their arc. And I think it would be really cool too, and we can even think about this without going back to those scenes as we continue on in the side quests. But so remember, that's a whole aspect of their relationship that we knew about even from Tales of Zestiria. And then the other thing that was new for Berseria is their relationship with each other through the intermediary of Eifried, the pirate leader whom they both respected. And so I wonder, as we think about, you know, the way they both followed him and the way they confronted him when he became a demon who was bound by Melchior, I wonder whether it's worth it and if there's a way to square those two relationships, like the Theodora stuff and the Eifried stuff, or if they're just two different irreconcilable ways in which these two men see and learn from each other, which would also to me be of a piece with the idea of just self-contradiction and incommensurable themes and aspects of relationship that we've seen throughout the game, especially in the third act. Easier said than done, I think, Grail, especially given everything that you've said about the nature of malevolence over Zestiria and Berseria. But yeah, just look to the kids, draw strength from them. Just pull a Melchior and copy Siegfried and just repeatedly shoot yourself with it. That's the lesson, right? That's the only thing to take from either of these games. All right, well, needless to say, obviously loved that. And we're done with that. All right, well, I'm going to suggest, honestly, while we're on Eizen and Zaveid, I kind of want to hunt down the other Nordals and see that through. So that's what I'll start looking for, but I will also say, I mean, we started out on that great note at Grail's suggestion, so if any of you are interested in doing another particular side quest, shout it out and we can divert ourselves. Finally! The most important treasure of all, a black Shiba Inu tail. Give it to me. Do you think the Nordals are worth saving, Grail? Are you convinced we'll just have too bad of a time with the monster at the end of that book, to use the Sesame Street reference?
Setting sail.
Oh, do we have to fight that specific Code Red demon, or all of them, to get through Rokuro's stuff? Well, why don't we just start with collecting the Nordals? I mean, I will at least get some more skits which are pertinent to Eizen, and it's not as if we have to see it through if we really can't. All right. We need the blue Nordal. Let's find that. All right, we have to go to Haria Village for the blue Nordal. All right. I like the way you think. Let's take that at face value and hope that it will be doable. This is a small structural mirror too, but it's something that I like. Again, when there's a game that's so saturated with character conversation and all of these skits, like a Tales game, but I would say especially like a recent modern Tales game, I think it's always really telling at key moments in the story or adventure when they don't have conversations. And the fact that Eizen and Zaveid were able to just have that conversation and make that promise and resolution to each other, and there was not a single skit that procced for the party, doing a post-mortem of that or talking through it with each other, because they were just honoring it for what it was. It's so small, it's unspoken, but to me that's such a nice mirror of something we talked about in our Tales of Zestiria playthrough after we defeated Eizen and put him to rest. There was so much build up to that. Edna's relationship with Eizen was really her raison d'etre for even going with Saray in the first place. It takes, the whole game to work up to that, be ready to actually kill him. And when you do, it's just a very simple expression from Edna just saying, I only want to say this once, and I'm going to say thank you. And that's it. And that kind of silent honor and recognition of the moment, I think, is really special and something that Zestiria and Berseria do exceedingly well. Or you could also put it the way that Grail put it. And I would not contest that. Two things can be true. If Berseria has taught us anything, it's that two things can be true. You can be someone's brother and an asshole fifth god who threatens to consume all of human nature. And also your own unborn brother. Don't think about it too hard. It's esoteric. Where is the... Oh, there it is. Sneaky fella.
Dolls collected and one to go.
Right.
Usually that turtle shows up right about now. What gives? Turtles, loiters, embroiders?
You mean the Turtles is late because he's taking too much time getting a new design for his robe?
I knew you could follow along, my dear little oyster.
Should we wait for him a bit longer? I'm sure your sister's reply has to be arriving soon.
I don't write her those letters expecting to get a reply. They're more like an apology for not coming home to see her.
But you can't go home because of the Reaper's curse, right? So why do you need to send letters and gifts?
Soon after I left, my sister wrote me a letter. She said, I don't care if it's dangerous. I want to be with you. Maybe the old me, once I realized there was no fixing this curse, would have gone home prepared to do everything in my power to protect her. But I'm not the old me. Haven't been since I met Ifrit and his crew.
I understand. You found your place on that ship. Even if you lifted the curse, you wouldn't move back home.
Do you think your sister knows that?
I haven't told her directly, but I'm sure she's realized it. She's smart, and she's empathetic. That's why she never sends me a reply.
You mean because she respects that you've chosen your way of life?
That's probably how she sees it, yes. But understanding does not preclude loneliness. I think she doesn't reply as a way of showing that she disapproves.
And you keep on sending those letters by way of atonement.
I don't think it's anything so noble as that, but sure. You're probably not too far off the mark.
A brother writing letters knowing he'll never get a reply. And a sister waiting for a brother she knows will never come home.
You two make it so damn complicated. Just talk it out face to face and make up already. It's not that hard. At least the person you care about is still alive.
Velvet.
Are we done here? Let's go.
That felt like something that like Velvet's last outburst there felt like something that didn't perfectly carry through to this late in the game. Like I felt as if they wanted us to discover that earlier in her arc. Yeah, Grail, I missed your earlier message, but agreed. I think it's really interesting and cool, and one of the things that I think makes this duology work, that because of the idea of these immortal characters, these spirits who have been around forever and will be around forever, it gives you that kind of continuity of character so that you can have things like Zaveid offering his perspective on the world, knowing everything that happened in Berseria, in Zestiria, and it doesn't feel forced. It also doesn't feel as though everyone in the world needs to have that context in order for it to make sense. Yeah, Chrissy, I mean, tip of the iceberg. I think the character studies and emotional sophistication are a huge part of why I wanted to invest in the Tales game to the extent that we are in Tales of Praxis. So I'm glad you're seeing that. Yeah, I hope you stick around because you'll only see that more and more, I promise you. Burst, I don't have a very sophisticated answer to that, and I'll tell you why. It's because I discovered and fell in love with the Tales game when I was probably like, I think truly 7 or 8 years old. It was the first story video game that I ever played, and I mention that because it was also one that I played before I thought at all about anything to do with, you know, oh, should I listen in the Japanese voices and, you know, just read the subtitles, or should I watch the dub or whatever? The version of Tales of Symphonia that I played, I don't think, to my knowledge, it even had that option. I think it was just the English voices. And so because I was introduced to the series in that way, I've just always defaulted to doing the English dub, which I love. And I think, I guess, you know, if I could offer anything in terms of like bigger picture insight on that, I think, especially with games that are as thoughtfully localized as the Tales games, you know, even if it's not in the original or whatever, I think it's perfectly appropriate to interpret and think about the English content of it in terms of the words that are used and chosen and the tone of voice. And I think the voice actors do pretty much a categorically incredible job, as we've talked about many times. And, you know, maybe one thing that is more interesting is, like we were talking about wikis earlier, and one of the cool things is that, you know, with a lot of the particular proper nouns or magic terms that are introduced in the games, you go online, you look at the wiki, you can see what their names are in the Japanese versus the translation to try to understand more of what they're driving at. Like De Nomos, for instance, which is the translation in the English version of the magic sword in Tales of Vesperia, is something that I think is roughly like the immortal sword of universal law, or something similarly provocative, and nomos is law in Greek, so that tracks also, but that's how it's represented in Japanese. So there are some interesting things like that. And then, for instance, when I was just thinking where to see the next Nordahl, when my buddy and colleague Dan, who is a Japanese scholar, when he played Tales of Symphonia, after many years of my bullying him to, he played it in Japanese because he actually speaks and reads and understands Japanese. And so I can mine interesting, cool insights off of him. Like, I forget exactly what this is, but he told me something like it was really interesting to him when they were referring to Colette in Tales of Symphonia because, you know, she's called the Chosen One. She has this particular role in the journey of regeneration, but I guess in the Japanese, I forget the exact translation, but it's something similar to like maiden, like some sort of, you know, what you would hear of sort of like the sacrifice of a young girl as opposed to some redemptive hero of the world, which was very interesting. So I think, you know, that's one of those topics where I think you can go as deep and wide as you want to and never run out of stuff to think in reference to it. Yeah, that's a good point, Grail. Sometimes, especially in a video game, it can be a practical matter to absorb all the dialogue in a way where you can really process it. De Nomos, I'm telling you. And that's one of those things, right? It's like, it's equally cool in the Japanese and the English for different reasons, right? Depending on the kind of tone that you want to strike. And yet what it symbolizes is I would say, pretty well represented by both of those names. Yeah, that's when you know you're in trouble, when the sword of your opponent not only is a named sword, but it's one with a long and epic name. There we go. All right, go team. We did it.
Turtles! Turtles!
Turtles!
Your detective skills truly put mine to shame.
It wouldn't have taken so much time and effort if you'd been willing to help us look. But you'll make it up to us with a suitable discount next time we trade.
I have to interrupt this because it's basically what I thought, but I would say the actual Japanese name is even cooler. De Nomosu, Immortal Law Enforcer, which is also great. Actually, it sounds to me even like the name of a monster in Yu-Gi-Oh! I'm not just saying that generically. I'm thinking specifically of Elemental Hero Phoenix Enforcer. I love magic swords. Wait a few more days. You'll get a whole disquisition on why I love magic swords.
You gives me a break.
Never mind. Do you have anything for us?
I do mind's that. But yeah, here's another letter for Eizen.
Another one? I will keep this missive short as my patience with you has expired. Come to the prison island and face your judgment. I will not blame you if you run, but I will consider you a heartless coward of a brother.
Oh,
no.
This sounds like a challenge to a fight. Now we're talking my language. Let's get going.
Whoever this is, they're just trying to get under your skin. Why not let it go and move on?
This is the third letter, not counting any that might not have reached us. I say we should go nip this in the bud.
Yeah, I think so too. If we just keep ignoring it, something might happen to Eizen's sister.
Exactly. I can't allow that. I want to head to Titania and settle things.
Oh man, a letter of challenge. We got to go to the Nordopolica Coliseum. Well, we can see these side scenes first. Two more thoughts because we had so many great threads in the chat. So just to cover these off before we move on. The other thing in terms of just if it's useful, the way I kind of think about subs and dubs in general, it's funny because this is so much of a personal thing, and I know that people have very different perspectives on it. But even when it comes to stuff like Anime Burst, because I know you're asking about stuff even more broadly than video games, like I find it so much has to do with whatever I hear it in first, because that's how I get to know and think of the characters in my head rather than just automatically defaulting to subs or dubs. Because growing up, similar to what I said about the Tales games, I would watch, like the 4Kids localizations of Yu-Gi-Oh! And stuff like that. But then a few years ago, when my buddy Dan introduced me to JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, he put it on in Japanese with the subtitles, and since then I've watched it in both, but it's so much harder for me to work my way into the English dub of it, even though, ironically, like many of those voice actors I know from things specifically like the Tales games, because I heard and got to know characters like the Joestars in Japanese first. The other thing that I wanted to mention, not about that Nordahl letter, but about the previous one, with the no reply and the meditating on these kind of messages across time and space without expectation and with the understanding that you'll never be able to see each other. That's such a touching and cool way, I think, of using this side quest to drive to the heart of what makes Eizen and Edna's an interesting relationship, not just in the abstract, but also in terms of a conversation between these two different games that are related by world, yet so concerned with distinct things and distinct communities. It really is kind of heart-wrenching that, like we talked about before, like so many character relationships in Berseria are defined by absence and not being able to reach the other person you care about. And theirs, I think, is really the icing on the cake when the characters are directly, trapped in different games, but also with a narrative explanation for why they could never meet even in the same time period. And part of why, without going too far down the Tales of Arise rabbit hole, I love to death the EX cameo dungeon that they do, bringing Eizen and Edna together, because that idea of how even when they're right together and by each other out of time, they're kind of separated by their different histories and everything they've been through, yet also grateful to simply have a moment to be with each other without any context. I think there's something really like melancholic but also touching and moving about that. Yeah, that's interesting, Grail. I could see the dub making it easier to just talk over or talk about the anime or the game or whatever, for sure.
Another hunting team sent to Hexen Isle was wiped out. Maybe we really are in over our heads.
Quit your whining. If we don't take out that dragon,
Yeah, for sure. That makes a lot of sense.
We're operating under the direct order of Lord Artorius himself.
Oh, they say the Calyx. I've been saying the Calyx.
Lord Shigure and the other legates.
I was Boo Boo the Fool all
There's a
along.
dragon on Hexen Isle.
Perhaps the one that was caught in the Calyx got loose?
I don't think so. It sounds like the one we fought some time ago.
It has to be Silva. Rein it in, kiddo. That dragon is bad news. I rather like not being a smear on the ground or a slowly dissolving mass inside a dragon's digestive tract. We'd best leave it be.
Oh, but that poor kid.
Do you feel
We gotta
obligated
help
to
that poor
him?
kid.
Not exactly. Even when we were together, we never talked. I mean, we didn't have any feelings or free thought. We were just there. If you'd taken him with you instead of me, I'd probably have turned into a dragon by now myself. He's beyond saving, but at the very least, I want him to be at peace.
It's your funeral. I'll stick around to clean up what's left.
I'll go too.
Me too.
I'm in. Everyone deserves closure.
Oh, to be young and fearless. You do realize if we lose, there won't even be any dental records left to identify us by?
Is that the funniest thing about this fantasy world? That for all of its distance from modern time and space, they identify people according to dental records.
I still have a long way to go.
I was thinking the same thing, Grail. Yeah. Talk about thematic consonants with all the dragons of the world.
If you steep the radish
Sometimes
pearls in
the
barley
the
water,
order just
the
works out,
poison is
doesn't it?
denatured, leaving behind a hearty flavor.
Sounds like snake wine.
Exactly. That's where I got the idea.
So, can I get a taste of your new concoction?
Don't tell me I have to wait 50 years for this one, too.
I just started brewing it up. It should be ready after the summer. But my intuition is telling me to let it sit for 4 years.
In that case, we'll come back next autumn. Make sure to save enough for 2.
Nah, 2 won't be enough. I want to treat the whole crew. How much can you make by then?
I've already prepped 3 large barrels. If I push, I could probably ready another 7.
Great, make them. I'll pay for all 7, and we'll split 5 barrels in the autumn.
What? And we'll come for the other 2 in 4 years' time. Right, Eizen?
No, we'll only take 1 more. The last one is yours to sell as the town's specialty.
Oh, thank you. I'll make sure it's delicious. Looking forward to it.
That was a nice follow-up. I had almost forgotten about that old friend of ours. In this town, which we decided is the precursor to Lastonbell, I think, if memory serves, right? God, that feels like ages ago. That was way earlier in Berseria.
She had the idea to build a great bell tower and make it the symbol
There you
of
go.
our town.
Yep, speaking of.
Make the tower out of stone, tall and proud. Then we'll hang the biggest bell in the land here. The wind whistling down from the mountains will carry the sound far, far away. Wouldn't that be wonderful?
Yeah, it sounds great.
Where are you going to quarry the stone?
The stone we get from the mountains near here is dense and smooth. Perfect for constructing buildings with.
You know your rocks.
When I was deciding on where and what to farm here, I spent a lot of time researching the nearby geology.
Not only does she have the knowledge, she has a great logical mind. She's been a terrific help in getting this plan off the ground.
And he's got the good ideas, but he tends to leap before he looks. Since I don't get flashes of insight like he does, he's given me all sorts of ideas for improving my farm.
Now we're trying to find the perfect metal for the bell.
The metals and their ratios used when casting the bell will change its sound dramatically, right?
That's right. We're testing all sorts of alloys, trying to find one that produces a smooth, pleasing sound.
I hope you can find a sound that will soothe the hearts of those both near and far.
I think what I would say, though, Grail and Chrissy, which will shock both of you, I'm sure, but no, very consistent with what I was saying in terms of different play styles of games. I think it's a matter of just knowing what it is that you're looking for and what the object that you want to interpret is in the first place. Because, yeah, of course, there's a layer of interpretation to the text that happens with something like localization, but I don't think that like corrupts meaning in my view, unless you're really interested in trying to drive at the heart of what the literal original flesh and blood creator was trying to say, which has never been my bag and I don't think is the interesting meat of literary analysis in the first place. So if you're just looking for an interesting text to study and engage with, and you recognize that the choice of words and its relation to meaning is one dimension according to which you're engaging with the text, then as long as you're aware of that and not trying to ultimately drive to the heart of the biography of the author per se, I don't think there's anything semantically deleterious in dealing with a translation versus the original. Oh, that's interesting, Grail. Which line of 2Bs did you have in your head?
Hello. We were hoping we could put on a comedy act here.
Oh, excellent.
Who's your partner?
Me.
I'm going to be honest. I think you'll be the worst of any of them.
I was going to say we'll take a break from Eizen, but we get even more Eizen.
Just act like we're both aboard the Vine.
It's the Eizen sidequest stream. I love it.
About this. All right. You can play the strong, forceful type, and I'll be the dumb, slow one who...
No. I want to play the dumb character.
Are you sure you can handle that?
I'll have everyone dying from laughter the way only a Reaper can.
I don't think I like where this is going.
I won't get you started because I can contribute nothing to that, Chrissy. Though I would be interested in whatever you think is worth discussing there. My man! Oh, is he just gonna rip her off?
Now, when you think of Rakugo, you of course think of classic characters like Hatsuan, Kuma-san, Oya-san, and there's the neighborhood retiree, and Yotaro the fool who...
Whoa, hold it! What are you rambling
Yeah, I could see that being attributed to either of them, Grail.
I'm just trying to get a
I think
feel
that's
for
fair.
the audience. Every comedian does it.
Not anymore. Speed is key nowadays. Speed! You need to be snappy and get straight to the point.
Well, I object. Comedy that forgets the old classics has no future.
What's old is tired. Comedy is always evolving. It has to.
You must be some new wave type.
Did you just click your tongue at me?
My man.
No.
You totally did. I heard that. I'm the leader here, and don't you forget it. If you respect comedy, then respect my authority.
Sorry.
All right, as long as you understand.
I steer the wheel of my own comedy.
What are you thinking of doing today?
I was thinking of maybe imitating a clock.
I can't take
Brutal.
this anymore. You're impossible.
Whew. It's been a while since I worked so hard.
We really tried to practice so the jokes would land. How do you think it went?
Your jokes were okay, I suppose.
He clicked his tongue too.
It was so intimidating. Whew. I couldn't laugh.
Huh?
Can't say I'm surprised.
I know, I was going to say, Grail, I think that was one of, if not my favorite, of the Magulu's Menagerie performances to date. That was great. It's all about the banter.
Every time this time of year comes around, I can't help but think back on that terrible accident.
Why don't you,
Tell us about
why don't you tell me about
This
it,
was
buddy?
all quite a long time ago, but a carriage transporting suspects to a heresy trial fell down a ravine. I was the one who first found them, and let me tell you, it was a nasty sight.
Oh, right. I remember hearing about this.
Well, these were people who'd made a killing running dodgy shows, so their luck might have just caught up with them.
Did anybody survive? Apparently not. But I heard there was one body they never found.
Right. She was a girl they'd made a part of their show. I heard they really abused her and forced her to work for them. I hope she managed to escape, but I don't know.
There were rumors that a strange spirit saved her life. As if anyone could believe a story like that.
Yeah, I heard that too. But the crash happened in the deep mountainside wilderness. It's much more likely that she was eaten by a beast. I'm surprised you know so much about it. It happened when I was still young.
Exactly how old are you, Magilu?
As old as my tongue.
It's illegal for you to ask me that.
From your reaction, I can at least tell you're not my age.
I like the little windows into the many mysteries of Magilu's past, especially given that we understand her to be a maven of the clan that is, at minimum, cursed with very long life, and at maximum cursed with immortality. I think we knew that Maven in Zestiria and Soray's time was like deathless until the shepherd released him from life. I don't think that's as explicit here, but it's evident they at least still have long lives. She's consistent. Magilu best character, Eizen best character. Maybe it's just a great party. Maybe that's the trick to Tales of Berseria. It's a great party all around. Oh, did I remember to stock up on items before we go to this fight I'm intimidated about? Yeah, okay. I think, yeah, this is one of those things I would have to go back and look at, Grail, but I think if we go all the way back to Zestiria, that was kind of what Maven said even then, was that it's not like they're like a literal special kind of creature who has this immortal life or something. It's that the, like the nature of their clan as chroniclers of history, which was maybe not as explicitly what Melchior was doing, but it's, you know, definitely the road that Magilu is walking down. Like, their nature as chroniclers, like, consisted in them taking this kind of oath to, like have this special longer life, or prolonged existence in return for playing the role that they do in historical events. Oh man, y'all are really starting to make me feel like I should try out these Xenoblade games. Are they worth my time? Interesting things to spend a couple hours with when I have a free weekend? That doesn't sound right. I don't think anyone would ever do that. No, I couldn't imagine. I tried imagining earlier today, Grail, and my head exploded. It took me the rest of the day to put it back together for the stream. Yeah, speaking of chroniclers of history, right? Oh god, is that who I am? Am I Magilu because I'm a chronicler of history?
Take a look at this. Well, well. Now here's
I'm gonna say that luck bodes well for whatever's coming next.
Good luck out there. Don't come back empty-handed.
Yes, ma'am. Oh, we're just knocking treasures off. I love it.
Show 'em how Ifreed's crew can sail.
That's right. He lived a splendid life right up until his brains painted everything
I
around
don't see
him.
any exorcists, at least. They must have pulled a runner once they were finished here. If our challenger knew that when selecting this location, I suspect we're in for a serious fight.
We need to stay careful.
If it's just the turtles after all this, I might cry. And not for the same reasons I cried with Zaveid and Eizen. I don't know. You think I remember that at this point, Grail? We can check. I mean, we're here. Shh. All the way to the other side. All right. Ah, good. We'd been enjoying too many of the nuanced and emotionally salient musical tracks in the third act of Tales of Berseria. Nice to be back to one of the OGs. See, I feel like that's one of those ones that doesn't register with me, Chrissy, because that's not an expression that I ever hear anywhere, so I just kind of, I can infer it from context either way. And neither sounds like better or worse to my ear. Is it it's a Britishism then, I imagine? Did I fuck up? I think I fucked up. I swear to God, just when I was saying that I was finally getting a handle on Titania, then we spent hours and hours doing other things in the story and it completely fell out of my head. That's what it is. It's water drip torture, but with music. I still stand by what I said at the beginning of the game. It felt grungy and appropriate at that time for that level of character development or lack thereof in Velvet. Right, yeah, and that's what I figured from context, but there you go. That would explain why it's not something that's familiar to my ear. Was it the box? Was it in the box? Boy, this dungeon is the Brad Pitts. Know what I'm saying?
There doesn't seem to be
All right,
anybody
I'm
here.
done.
Wait, what's up with that box?
The time has come for judgment and retribution.
What the?
Normans?
Did a Nordal just come out of that box?
That's not a Toidles, that's a Normans.
Very well. You ought to know the name of he who consigned you to the flames of hell.
Wait. You're that Norman, right? Phoenix or whatever? Ha! No wonder those letters were so full of empty threats and blustery nonsense. Bien! This is bad. The self-styled strongest Norman of all Norman is the mastermind behind all
Oh no, are we fighting a Norman? Is that the boss?
I am the man among men, the strongest Norman of all Norman. I am Phoenix.
Yeah, we've covered that already.
Is he a super boss in Zestiria too and we just missed it? Because I noticed in the art book of Zestiria there were like cut-ins and concept arts for a Phoenix Norman, but we never ran into him. Yeah, maybe we'll have to go back and find that at some point now that we are doing this. Oh yes, you've told me that before, Chrissy. I love that. What a great name for a pub dog.
What's your bone with me?
I merely seek to right wrongs. I recently came into possession of a letter from a sister pouring her heart out to her brother.
Uh-oh.
I traced the letter back to its sender, and one day paid her a surreptitious visit. There, I found a sweet, innocent girl.
Amazing voice actor choice for this Norman, by the way.
And mountains of letters she couldn't bring herself to send.
Letters she couldn't send?
Heartfelt letters for her older brother. When I read them, My manly tears fell over the same salty stains left by hers.
What the hell is wrong with you? Who reads someone else's letter and then decides to break into their room?
Phoenix. Phoenix does.
I acknowledge that I am partly in the wrong. But for all that is righteous, I cannot condone you. I do this for your sister, clasping her hands in well-worn gloves.
Boy, they edited right over the end of that line for some reason.
Across the wide blue sea.
Enough of this nonsense. What is it that you want?
That is a question you should be asking of yourself.
What do you mean?
Just what is it that you're communicating with the superficial scrawlings and shoddy baubles you send her?
He's trying to atone.
Don't be absurd. Which is the real you? The considerate brother who worries for his sister? Or the man who consorts with low-life scum and pirates?
This Norman taking our boy to task.
With her, pirate. She is your sister. Why can you not tell her of the life you've chosen to lead? Do you think her too weak-willed to forgive your decision? Is that what your beloved sister is to you?
I don't have to take this from you.
Fine then. Show me your power. You asked for it. Then it's settled. If I win, you will go visit your sister immediately. But if I lose, I will obey your every command.
Maybe time mellows them out or something. They still have a lot of personality, but they're definitely less intensely resolved, I guess. Jesus. I'm worried that Phoenix doesn't think that people can change. What level is he? Oh, 100. Good. Good. I smell a fight like our first confrontation with Dark Turtles coming. I am a bird! Well, I'm glad he's weaker than on hard mode, but I'm not feeling great about this. Does Velvet have a Earth path? No, I didn't. Well, no. I wasn't smart enough to do that. Oh, okay. All right. I keep forgetting how much this and Zestiria are just about breaking through resistances, and then once you get power hits, you can carve out damage pretty well. Alright, we gotta do something. You really want to know, Grail? I'll tell you, but it's a pretty sophisticated answer. I don't know if you'll appreciate it. It's because I am a lazy son of a bitch. I bet you never saw that coming, did you, buddy? Yeah, it does feel a little more manageable to me in Zestiria as well. What does he resist? Fire and wind. Okay, so I can think this through. He resists fire, so we want fire and water. Okay, I think that's what we want. All right. Good advice. Good advice. he just counter us? It sure did. Even a stop clock kicks Norman ass twice a day. Well, he's also a tiny Norman, to be fair, so if ever an enemy were to be pushed that far back, it makes sense. That's not what I want. I want this. Boy, he really hits hard. It's a pretty good track for this fight, though. I mean, it fits. Damn, if I only had an aim. And if he only had a hitbox. Yeah, it's not the best, but what are you gonna do? There we go. God damn it, Rokuro. I do like him just groaning in agony off screen, that's fun. Yeah, I think we'll be okay at this point. If it were a longer fight, I would remap things, but I think we've done enough to get through this. Oh, who has an attack named Orochi's Fury? Is that Rokuro? That sounds like Rokuro. That's a cool name in this game for obvious reasons. Pretty cool, Rokuro. Well, these characters, I'm telling you. They know what's up. Oh no! Yeah, that's the cut-in that I saw in the Zestiria art book. You can learn what? Phoenix's mystic art? Orochi's Fury, See, I will happily pay for DLC that I feel make special warranted contributions to the story or overall ecosystem of the game, but man, paying extra for things like item packs or costumes, I mean, don't get me wrong, I like costumes, but it's a tough pill for me to swallow. Especially when there are already so many great costumes as just part of the basic elements of the base game itself. My man.
You weren't lying when you said you were the strongest.
No kidding.
Strong or not, you picked a fight with the Reaper.
And I'm proud of you for that decision, buddy.
Wait, Eizen, what are you?
I believe you.
I thought so. That's why you're called the Phoenix, isn't it? Your blessing has the exact opposite effect as my curse.
So you finally noticed.
So, if Phoenix has that kind of power, then couldn't he protect your sister?
I admit defeat. I await your command.
No.
Why not?
I believe we should each steer our own ships through life's waters. I know that the life I've chosen is a selfish one. And I know that it leaves my sister lonely and sad. But it's also the only way I know how to live. If I gave you a command, it would be denying something at the very core of my being. So no, I won't do it. Except...
Yes?
If you're able, I want you to use your powers to protect my sister.
I don't know, but I wish they would stop.
Demons and malevolence. And from any dragon who may one day attack.
Oh, Eizen.
A dragon? Are you serious?
This isn't an order. It's just a request.
Oh.
Well then, I accept your request as your
So
friend.
it's Phoenix's blessing at the request of Eizen that protects Edna when we finally confront Dragon Eizen and Zestiria.
I want you to write her another letter. But this time, no hiding what you're truly thinking. I'll wait as long as it takes for you to write it.
No need.
What?
I've been carrying this for so long, I'm afraid it's kind of crushed.
Wow.
My friend, I swear on my honor that this letter will reach your sister, and I promise I will get her to smile once more.
I love that, Grail, and you know I love it the most because it didn't happen to me.
With me, life rises anew from the ashes.
I love that sound effect.
I'm counting on you.
Then it is time I'm on my way. Come, turtles.
At your service.
Oh!
I'll deliver
Goodbye,
this
Jojo.
package myself, even if it cost me my life.
Farewell, friend.
That was awesome.
What a guy. He doesn't back down even when he's lost.
I guess. But I liked what he had to say.
See, I knew something good would come from this.
Yeah. I guess I learned something today. Never give
That
up.
definitely sounds like something I'm going to do, Grail. I'm glad I'm not that completionist about Tales Platinums, because if I did, doing the Tales of Praxis series would probably take me 5 years as opposed to 1 or whatever it'll end up being. Ah, but see, even trade, we get that ability from this this artifact that he left. Amazing. Wow. Well, this is one of the many reasons that I love these side quest adventures and postgame as palate cleansers for reflecting on and digesting the main story of these wonderful JRPGs, but also adding new content and nuances to them, because I did not wake up this morning and intend to make it an Eizen stream, but man alive, we had such a touching, illuminating meditation on his relationship with Zaveid and his sister, even his amazing rapport with Magilu in a comedy skit. This was the Eizen side quest adventure, and what a great way to start out the Berseria postgame. Well, no, Gray. I mean, I was thinking mostly since the time that I started Tales of Praxis, which was February or March. But yeah, point taken. I mean, especially if we stream them all, I think we'll be going well beyond that. But I'm trying to treat myself optimistically in terms of at least a cadence for getting everything played once in some capacity and published on. But you know, it's playing and thinking in slow motion, and that's one of the many joys of it. So it's not as if we're in a rush. quite to the contrary. He does deserve it. Eizen, this is a tribute to you and to Edna, your other half. I won't say your better half, but that sister means so much to you in that game Beyond, which we ventured through together. Yeah, the perfect note on which to start off a week of Berseria postgame, and a perfect note on which to start off a week of gaming reflections in general. It is the zeitgeist, Chrissy, and stick around. One of the things we dwell on so often is just the value of honoring these games by studying them over the amount of time and reflection that is warranted, as opposed to giving into the hype cycles. So that's what we're all about. Thank you again, Bamco. Grail and Chrissy, so great to see you. Amazing chatting, as always. Who else did we have? Burst, my friend, so nice to see you back. It had been a while. You're always welcome. I hope that you join in for some more of these post-game adventures in the Tales of Praxis series. Hugs, great to see you back as well. It had also been a minute, but we had some fun tonight, didn't we? And gosh, there was someone else. Jellybean, I think that's your username. I'm failing to find you easily in the chat, but yes, my goodness, we had a vibrant chat going, which makes it all the better, especially for deconstructing something as robust and resonant as Berseria after the final motions of its main story. So let's keep that energy going. The slow motion energy, not the hyper energy. But I've got enough of that hyper energy in working through this article. And stay tuned. I am truly hoping that now that we're through Act 2, it'll come together in short order. But even that, I mean, the thinking in slow motion has been wonderful there, because as you'll see in my citations and acknowledgements, a big part of that has been not just working through the games on my own, but talking through them on the stream. So it is all connected. It is the multi-dimensional and multimedia joy of Tales of Praxis, as much in our studies as in these games. So truly, thank you for that. And Grail has a hidden message for Pottery, which I'm sorry for calling out, because I guess if Pottery happens to be watching the VOD and listening as opposed to actually watching it, Grail, I just made it slightly easier to pick out that message. But we can assess the next time Pottery returns. We'll be back at 7 p.m. Eastern. I will pop one more time in the chat. I think it's just Grail and Chrissy here at this point, but for the benefit of anyone who may be lurking, we're still trying to decide what to play next, especially at this rate in the post game. I think we've got a little time to make that decision. So think about the kind of Tales adventure you would like to have next on the stream. If you want to loop in anyone else from your gaming or literary worlds you think might be interested, feel free to invite them too. If you're watching the VOD on YouTube, it's in the description to the video too. So check it out, make your voice heard, be part of the real life JRPG party. And we'll see you on the next leg of this wonderful journey. Same time Wednesday. Till then, friends, I'm Aaron Sudoku. Grail is trolling with a different game that he putatively wants every time I share it, which I love. Yeah, you have a good night too, Grail. I'll be back soon. Aaron Sudoku, founder of With a Terrible Fate. This has been Tales of Praxis. See you in a couple days. Cheers.